All right, and we're back. It is Thursday, May 14th, just about 11 in the morning. Today is going to be a fun one. The last two scripts have been quite odd and difficult to get through, to be honest. Once in a Lifetime was rough. I had to remember exactly the type of fever dream I was picturing, but I enjoyed it. The script yesterday was very difficult to get through. Rinse and Repeat Part 1 was the one from yesterday. And it was a challenge because it went through a lot of different versions for my imagination up into what it came to now with the four stand-up comedians and some of the other weird dream sequences. It wasn't supposed to be that connective tissue to revisit episode 1 and 2 with Lori and her constellation playing a violin and the jailbreak monster, the doppelganger, demon, whatever. It wasn't really intended to do that, but that's what it became as I kept going back to it. It was so bad in the beginning that I never wanted to read it. I was like, all right, I'm just going to leave it alone and move on with other stuff. But eventually I had to go back. Maybe months later, I had to go back and try to just make it more entertaining, I guess. It's not that the story was bad. I still put the story in there with Bew and Lamb and their journey through the hurricane and how they survived like that. That story was still the main plot device. But then I had to add the mushroom angle and all those flashbacks to Sonny opening up his mushroom restaurant and all the ridiculous stuff like that. Maybe it's because I watched more Rick and Morty through that time period and that was on my brain, which I'm thankful for. Rick and Morty's been a pretty big influence on a lot of stuff in my head because they'll go deep and they'll get emotional. They'll get very technical, complicated science fiction storylines and connect it to the human drama and psychological issues. And it could be done in a very serious way, but they make it so funny that you can still educate yourself on these things and things you should be concerned about when it comes to issues like that. Identity and, it's tough to say Rick and Morty's kind of like a educational device, but it really is. But if you do it through comedy, which I'm trying to do, I tried to do yesterday when I was reading through that story. I don't know how successful I was. If you add a bit of comedy to something, then people will feel more comfortable discussing mental trauma and other issues like that otherwise would be like a after school special. Where'd you learn that? I learned it from you, Dad. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions, motherfucker? You gonna fry that egg like your brain? This is your brain, motherfucker. This is your brain on drugs. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, so it gets weird. When you portray things very seriously in a fear-mongering fashion, even the children, I don't think it's effective, man. If you're basing it on fear, any kind of a lesson, I don't think that's the right motivational thing. It makes the kids stupid. You want to teach your kids rationality and grow their critical thinking. If you just go, ooh, the boogeyman, ooh, the devil, I'm the devil. You put stuff in there like that to a 5-year-old's brain, it's going to affect their rational thinking. It's going to affect their critical output. Eventually, they grow out of it, but still, why do you want to do that to a kid? I don't understand that shit. But everyone can do whatever the fuck they want. But when you present something from a more rational point of view, even if it's a small child, I think it's very effective in their early development. Now I'm playing child psychologist. I was trying to psychoanalyze myself, and then I was talking about nutritional shit. Now I'm pretending I'm a child psychologist. But these are all relevant issues. As we get into the story today, it's completely different than the one yesterday, even though the title is Rinse and Repeat Part 2. It's really more of a continuation of the Marathon episode, which I mentioned yesterday. Marathon was the Joe character, chain smoking marathon runner, down on his luck, and he kind of has this comeback in his life to make it to the Olympics and win the fucking Olympics as a chain smoking marathon runner. That's the lens of how I could reflect some of my own issues through Joe's character, and that's such a stupid, absurd storyline. Maybe not so absurd. Like, it wasn't that long ago, baseball players were in a dugout smoking cigars or smoking cigarettes or taking speed in the 80s. I think that was a big deal in the 80s. I think it wasn't really steroids, it was just baseball players taking amphetamines and stuff like that, or drinking tons of coffee. At least I know coffee's a pretty addictive drug. You don't feel like you can exist in the morning unless you drink your coffee or whatever. But once you're off of it for a couple of days, at least it goes away pretty quickly. Cigarettes is the opposite. Whatever cigarettes does to your mental functioning, your digestive system, your nervous system, everything, your dopamine release, cigarettes become like, all right, now I'm on a break. Cigarettes become your physical representation of just mellowing out. So it's different than coffee. Coffee's a fine drug. It's not like a crazy harmful drug. I think there's actually positive benefits to it. But maybe because it's not as addictive, you might get a headache for a couple days, but you can wane yourself off of coffee, caffeine pretty easily. It's not going to stay in your system that long. For some reason, it took me a long time, months, to get the urge of cigarettes out of my head. It's more of a mental thing, although it is physical as well. It's a chemical addiction. But yeah, that's a tough one. I think I mentioned, yeah, Ozzy Osbourne was saying that cigarettes was the hardest drug he ever had to quit because it's a daily habit. Some people smoke a cigarette every hour, like once an hour on the clock. It becomes a Pavlovian thing. But once you're gone for at least maybe 3-4 months, you don't even think about it anymore. You just have to get to that point. And it's tough because people go to rehab for harder drugs and they're kind of encouraged to keep smoking cigarettes just to keep them balanced or aid them as they're trying to give up another drug. I'll go back to the Dick Gregory quote, which is so memorable. If they took all the caffeine and cigarettes and those legalized drugs that keep America running, America runs on Dunkin' and Marlboros or Parliaments. If they take all the nicotine and caffeine off the streets, out of Wawa's and 7-Elevens, people can't get their morning coffee. They would have to bring the tanks in. The National Guard would have to be called in to just keep everyone from killing each other. I can't have my Wawa pumpkin spice. Riot. So yeah, it's amazing what chemical addictions do. I'm not saying coffee's bad. I'm trying to work at Starbucks, man. I'm trying to become a barista to support my art here so I can actually get an income coming in. That's a fine job. You're not exactly curing cancer or doing occupational speech therapy or some shit like that I also thought about going back to school for, becoming a teacher or teaching people English as a second language. I had all these ideas. I'm like, why am I doing that? My goal is to be an artist. My goal is to be a writer, which I've achieved, but I just don't know how to get to the next part of that journey to actually survive like that and not just make stuff and it just sits here. So yeah, I would rather just get a job. Not that that's a brainless job. A barista is an important job. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm not against coffee. I'm not anti-coffee. Coffee's a bad drug. I don't do caffeine, but I don't give a shit. I've done it for half my fucking life. But let's get into what this story is going to be, a little bit at least. The original concept is I wanted to make a caveman Jesus, and that was kind of Lamb in Rinse and Repeat Part 1. Lamb was the shaman, the healer. He sacrificed himself for Bu to save his family. He's the Jesus figure. He sacrificed himself as the family shaman or whatever you want to call him, the mushroom prophet. That's a good name. They should make a movie, or maybe that's a good band name for like a stoner rock band, the Mushroom Prophet. That was Lamb. He was the caveman Jesus. So where did I go from there? In part 2, which I'm going to get through today, and it's a little bit longer. It's almost 80 pages, so it's going to take me a little bit longer to read through. But it's going to be more enjoyable, so I don't think I'll mind. This is a lot of potential. I'll say it like that. This has just as much potential as Marathon, as being like a feature film. Marathon might be more of an indie underground type of movie, but this one could be an actual Oscar worthy movie. I don't know. I think it's a good look at the 80s, the political climate of the 80s, and going back in time. Not that I really existed. I was born in 81, so I don't remember Reaganomics and trickle down shit. I don't remember the war on drugs. My political consciousness started with like Monica Lewinsky. That's when like maybe I was like, oh, what's this, CNN? Oh, Monica Lewinsky. So good job, Monica Lewinsky. And that story was like the first story I remember as a kid in terms of political drama, because you couldn't escape it. It was like the biggest story ever at that point. Every night, that's all people would talk about. Oh, did you hear about the blue dress? And it's just fucking weird. Even as a kid, it's like, what the hell? This is fucking odd, man. But yeah, I was not politically aware of anything in the 80s at all. But why do I go back to that time period so often? I don't know. I did it in Seeds of Anarchy. That's based in the 80s. It dealt with the war on drugs. I did it in Marathon. That's based in the 80s. And this was just a continuation of that story. Marathon was around 1984. Well, it was in 1984, not around. This one is 1985, like right after that story happened. And it's connected to Rinse and Repeat Part 1 because we're going to be following Manny around. Manny was the character in Marathon, the homeless man who found Joe's gold medal in the dumpster at the end of the episode and took it out of the dumpster. He kind of goes around and collects scrap metal. That's how he survives almost. He goes around and he's a very likable gentleman, homeless guy. Just because he's homeless doesn't mean he's not a good person. And we're going to get into more of his story as we go. But yeah, he's a very likable individual. Even he might lose his kind of, I want to say faith. I guess so. He kind of loses his faith at the end of the episode because he doesn't feel like anything he tries is going to be effective and trying to change his life or help other people, he gets kind of jaded by the whole political process by the end. So, of course, there's a bit of me in him, like in all of my characters. There's a bit of me writing from my point of view through the characters I create, but he's not based on me. None of these characters are based on anybody in real life. They're just vessels for me to explore some of the thoughts within me. And I really like this story. I really do like it. I'm already thinking it's going to be winning an Oscar award. So, of course, this is like one of my favorite episodes. It could be a feature film because it deals with relevant issues of political corruption and greed and homelessness, which is a huge part of this story. Manny is homeless. He's living in Atlantic City, surviving on the street the best he can, living in squats and other places, abandoned buildings, and we're going to look into what it must have been like to live like that in Atlantic City in the 1980s. There was two Atlantic cities almost, you know. There's the one with all the glitz and glamour on the boardwalk and casinos, and how can you not be tempted by that shit? I used to go down there all the time, Borgata or Tropicana, Caesars, because it was such a temptation, man. You go down there for just to escape for a weekend or whatever and just gamble and do whatever the fuck else. Like, I'm not against gambling. I portray it as kind of a social ill because it is a social ill. You can't deny it. Like, just because Wall Street is kind of a probably social ill too, all the corruption and insider trading, it doesn't mean you just get rid of that system because there's corruption and because gambling is a vice and could ruin someone's life if they're not careful. I'm not the censorship guy. I'm not saying you should make these things illegal. It was what I said yesterday, the same thing with comedy that might be offensive to someone. If 9 people laugh, but 1 person out of the 10 is offended, do you cancel that show or cancel that comedian? On the reverse, if only 1 person finds it funny, but 9 people find it offensive, then are you justified in censoring that whatever? Where is the percentage to make everyone happy or make everyone feel safe or make everyone feel loved? And because those are all valid things. I'm not against that. People made fun of the snowflakes and the safe space. Remember when that shit was going on in the public discourse? But there's really nothing wrong with that. You invite someone into your home, or when you go to someone's restaurant, what's the first thing? They're trying to make you feel safe and warm and comfortable. Maybe that's more because they want your business, but it's all relevant. I think that's a part of human nature to want to connect with people and make people feel comfortable in your company. So there's nothing wrong with anything like that, but when it becomes canceling shit and censoring people and ruining people's lives sometimes based on your judgments. I thought we're not supposed to judge people. Judge whatever that Bible verse is, you know. Judge not, let ye be judged, judge yourself, whatever the fuck it is. Everyone tries to live by that, but I think all that shit gets just tossed out the window when your ego gets involved. Once your ego's out there and your narcissism and you want to be better than that person, put that person down, oh, we could get this guy through these manipulations. Once your ego takes over, all that shit's out the window. Whatever you knew about the golden rule and don't judge other people because you don't have the right to judge other people. You don't know how to walk through someone else's shoes. And even if you do, you still won't understand it because it's impossible to, the Tom Petty song, you don't know how it feels to be me. Great song. My old man was born to rock. He's still trying to beat the clock. Yeah, it's a very common theme in music and cinema. Like Tom Petty's a commercial darling. How many radio hits did Tom Petty have? It's like at least in the 20s or 30s, probably. He was just shitting out hit song after hit song that's perfect for the radio because it has a large demographic. But then he also wrote The Last DJ, one of his later albums, kind of criticizing the commercial aspects of radio and how narrow it was becoming early in the 2000s. Now you look at it today, I think he was pretty on the money about a lot of those concerns. And it took some balls for him to write an album like that. I wrote about it in my book about censorship. It's a common thing I think about all the time because I'm trying to be an artist. I'm trying to be a writer. I say I'm trying to be because I'm trying to make money off my art. I'm already an artist. I'm already a writer. What I'm trying to do is become a financially successful artist, writer, whatever. And he was kind of talking about that in that album. It's kind of one of his underrated masterpieces. Tom Petty, my favorite album is Into the Great Wide Open. I really enjoy that album. I used it a lot in an episode to come, the next one, tomorrow, the episode 11 titled Rebels. It's all about kind of my childhood soccer days as we used to travel to the Poconos for tournaments. But I said it as a horror story, and Tom Petty Into the Great Wide Open was the album that kind of led the direction of it. Now, why do I think this one's a feature film? I think it goes back to after I finished it, I was like putting together a soundtrack of 80s songs. Like, not all, some of them are soul songs. Go Tell It on the Mountain, Mean Old World by the Soul Stirrers. But then I put 80s stuff. My Hometown, Springsteen, Hard Times, Run DMC, Turn on the News by Husker Du, Dirty Old Town, The Pogues, The World Needs a Melody, that's an older country song, Johnny Cash and the Carter Family, Fuck Armageddon, This Is Hell. I think I end the episode with that song, Bad Religion. Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd, it might be the 70s, but late 70s. Living for the City, Stevie Wonder, that's late 70s. There's a Lonnie Liston Smith song with the Cosmic Echoes, A Chance for Peace. Oh Happy Day, the classic soul song. Spiritual Blessing, Pharoah Sanders. I think that's just an instrumental. Funkadelic, Super Stupid. Ray Charles, You Are My Sunshine. Steve Roach, ambient guy, Canyon of Sound. Herbie Hancock, Everybody's Broke. So they're not all from the 80s, but I do this a lot. After I write something, I want to make a soundtrack to kind of, in my head, how I view these scenes going, what song would fit here, what song would fit here. So I did that for maybe a day or two, putting 17 songs together. Yeah. And it just really fit the spirit of the story. Maybe I'll share this playlist again, and it will help you experience this movie through music, besides me reading it. But I don't know. There's a couple different. I'm looking at my old post from Substack when I first shared this script back in 2023, November 2023. And there's a lot of different influences all mashed together. There's a Paul Hogan movie called Almost an Angel, which I watched before writing this or while writing it. Vaguely remember, I think it was in the middle of this process. Maybe I wanted to take a break because this is episode 10. And I was doing this all in sequential order like this. At least I believe so at this point. I was in my zone of outlining a story and being able to get it done in a week or so, and then going back to edit it later, of course, because it's probably not as polished as it should be. But from time to time, I would watch other movies to get kind of a greater in-depth inspiration. And that was a movie I remembered as a kid, Almost an Angel, starring Paul Hogan. He might actually be homeless, or he's in jail, and then once he leaves jail, he goes into this town and to hide. Maybe he was trying to rob a bank and he has to go into hiding or something. Whatever the story was, the setup. And now he's in this town and he has to help like this inner city community center, and he's trying to get funding. And yeah, it's an interesting movie. It's still kind of it's still kind of got a message across that I liked, even though I'm kind of a cynical person that doesn't really believe in all the spiritual fairy tale shit. It's still worth watching. It's a decent movie from that time period, maybe early 90s. Maybe there's a bit of Trading Places in this, which is a classic comedy. And I also mentioned that Cory Booker documentary, Street Fight. If you never saw that, it's pretty hardcore, man. When Cory Booker first came to Newark and he's trying to run for mayor or something, whatever it was. I guess the 90s at some point, early 90s. And he's going against this incumbent guy, and it will really open your eyes to maybe inner city politics, whatever that means, or just when you have a guy in power for 30, 40 years, how difficult and how intimidating it can be to try to run against that person. It's a really good documentary. And yeah, these are some of the things I mentioned. There's a YouTube channel called Tucker Upper, and I think it's a couple from New Jersey, and they kind of go around and trash pick, and they go to estate sales, they go to maybe more storage lockers from what I remember, and they'll just like Storage Wars, they're actually living that life. I don't know if it's still an active channel, it's been a while, but they made a documentary about Atlantic City and homelessness and how gambling can fuck up your life, and it's a huge inspiration for the story as well. So I shared that on my original posting from 3 years ago now, and yeah, it really helped me picture what some of the scenes that I set up and some of the set designs that I had in my head, because there is an abandoned motel in that documentary. Tucker Upper is the name of the YouTube channel, Tucker Upper. And in that documentary, they're showing these homeless people in like this abandoned motel, and that's where I got the inspiration to use that in my story, and that's a pretty big plot device. So just like I gave Paul Stamets credit, almost like a writing credit, I would give those people credit because they led me to create that plot device, or that conflict. Really, it's a conflict, and it leads the second half of this story. So yeah, thanks to those people, and it's a really well made documentary. There were some other ones I watched about 1980s Atlantic City as soon as gambling was legalized, and some of the political ramifications, maybe gentrification, people getting priced out because the property was so valuable at that point. A lot of people got probably fucked over in the process, which usually happens when stuff like that happens. And I don't remember what it's called because I think it was removed from YouTube, but it was really well done. Maybe about a 40-minute news report about now that gambling's legal in Atlantic City, because it's from the early 80s when they made this report. You can tell, like, it's really interesting to see the people in the video man, it was very good, very well done, and it helped me kind of write some other scenes. So, again, YouTube is just an incredible resource. I'm not going to the library researching stuff like people had to do in the 60s and 70s, looking at microfilm, looking at newspaper articles. I was able to find everything on YouTube and other internet searches. The Village Voice, that Greenwich Village newspaper, I was able to find their archive online and go through some of the newspapers when I was writing Seeds of Anarchy. I didn't really use it that much, but I was trying to get in the mood of what would Greenwich Village have been like in the 60s, late 60s, into the 70s. And that was pretty interesting too. So I'll complain about social media, and I'll complain about other stuff relating to the way our brains are becoming digitized, just like the internet. Like we're blending into one singularity, and I mentioned that yesterday too, I think, or the day before. But of course, it's writers from the 50s and 60s would be like, "You fucking spoiled brats. We had to write on typewriters and use whiteout when we made a mistake." You know how fucking annoying that was? Imagine writing a book on a typewriter or a word processor even. Like, it's just insane how easy people have it today. And in 100, 200 years from now, people will look back at us and be like, "I can't believe people lived like that. They had these cell phones still." Because everything's just going to be like, I don't know, some hologram inside your brain or some shit as we become one with machine. I'm more, like, people say if they had a time machine, they would go back in time. Fuck that, man. I'm doing the Marty McFly or Biff. I'm going to the future. I'm going to get that sports almanac. I'm going to find out what company is going to be bigger than Google 200 years from now. I'm going to go back and then invest in whatever the fuck I can to make a bunch of money. I'm not going back to dinosaur times. What the fuck do I want to see dinosaurs for? I saw Jurassic Park. That's good enough for me. If I had a time machine, I'm going like maybe 50 years in the future. So there'll be some new company that nobody knows about that invents this crazy quantum computer or whatever that takes over the world, if the world's still there in 50 years. Or some new green technology so we don't have to rely on fossil fuels anymore. Something new. Besides all the wind power, solar panels, there'll be something new eventually. Hydroelectric, is that well, I guess that's been around for a while with dams. Yeah, Hoover Dam was pretty old. But that's what I'm doing. I'm going at least 50 years ahead, or maybe just 10 years ahead, finding out who won the Super Bowl every year, coming back, and then I'm set for life, man. I'm going Biff McFly, not Biff McFly, whatever the fuck his name was. What was his last name in that? Now I gotta look up Biff's last name so I can continue in this ranting. Biff. Great character. He played a Biff Tannen, yeah. I hate Manure. Biff Tannen. Great character. Thomas F. Wilson. Butthead. Yeah, alright. I'm gonna get to the story now. I'm looking up Biff Tannen. I need to start reading or I'm gonna lose focus completely now. Whoa, look, a bird. Alright, rinse and repeat part 2. Let's begin. It is 74 pages. I'm going to try to read like 40 pages now if I can. Or find a good place to split this up and then come back in a couple hours and do the rest. Alright, we're going to begin by fading in to a city street. And again, this is Atlantic City, the same type of rundown inner city, seedy part of the city that Joe lived in the Marathon episode. we meet Manny again. He's in his 50s, he's homeless, and he's pushing his rusted shopping cart through a seedy part of the city, as I mentioned, as early morning sunlight shines down onto his abandoned row home, other warehouses nearby, and a corner store. And now on the screen is a super, Atlantic City, 1985. Manny's collecting scrap metal from the curb. Then he places it into his cart, which also contains 2 loaves of freshly baked bread and a toy truck. He wipes sweat off his brow as he clutches his 1984 Olympic gold medal around his neck. So he still has it. His good luck charm that he never takes off. Manny voiceover. Again, this is almost like similar to the Joe episode where Joe's doing the voiceover. There's a good bit of it in this one too, I forgot. Manny is the storyteller now though. Because Joe says, "What's your story?" And now Manny's going to tell a story. So I'm using voiceover again. This is one of the many streets on which I reside. He tears portions of bread off a loaf and hands them to some vagrants who smoke cigarettes and pass around a whiskey bottle against an abandoned row home. They eat and nod in thanks as Manny guides his cart away. Manny VO. Can't say I exactly approve of some of the residents' lifestyles. He passes by an alley where 2 homeless women lay inside cardboard boxes. One is smoking a cigarette and one is reading a discarded Time magazine. Reagan, the second term, is the headline on the cover of Time. So we're in Reagan's second term here, 1985. All right. Now he's handing out portions of bread to these 2 homeless women as they shake his hand in thanks. Manny VO. But everyone has to eat. So I'm splitting up those lines. Can't say I exactly approve of some of the residents' lifestyles, but everyone has to eat. Manny now guides his cart past graffitied walls, broken windows, and rotting plywood boards blocking the entrance, while a frail, shirtless homeless man sits against the wall passed out, track marks down his arm. Manny VO. No matter what demon you also happen to feed in the process. Now Manny's waking the homeless man up, handing him a piece of bread, as the man eats it with no expression on his face. Manny VO. Everyone has a story to tell out here. He guides his cart further down the road. Manny continuing VO. And I'm not about to start casting the first stone. A little bit later, Manny's by an abandoned building, guiding his cart towards a homeless family, and he's tossing the rest of the bread to them as they nod in thanks and eat it. Manny. Life on the street isn't too complicated. He hands the young homeless boy the toy truck from his cart, which he probably found in a dumpster somewhere. He's kind of a collector like that. But he's giving all these things away to other people. The boy's eyes lights up as he plays with the truck through the street, while Manny waves to the rest of the family and guides the cart away. Manny VO. Most of the time, I guess it's wiser to just keep to yourself. A rusted dump truck full of scrap metal and old appliances drives by. So one of those guys who drives his own personal truck to pick up people's trash, scrap metal, and anything to take to the scrapyard. And Manny waves to the male truck driver inside driving the truck. Manny VO. But it's also good to get to know the neighborhood a bit from time to time. The truck driver honks and waves back to Manny kindly. Truck driver. Morning, Manny. He drives off as Manny guides his cart farther in the opposite direction. So Manny's kind of doing the same thing, just he doesn't have a truck. He's collecting scrap metal in his shopping cart. This guy has a whole truck to do it in, but they're not like competitors. They're actually allies in this. All right. Manny's now pushing his cart in the opposite direction, farther down this road. Manny VO. And you might even manage to survive a few winters out here. He collects more scrap metal off the curb as Curtis, an old Scottish terrier like the Monopoly dog, walks towards him. This is Manny's dog. We met Curtis in the marathon episode. Manny's talking to Curtis now. Well, good morning to you too, Curtis. Manny pets him, feeds him some treats from his pocket, then gently places him inside the cart. Manny VO. Nobody ever thinks they'll be squatting in abandoned buildings. He passes a line of abandoned row homes, all graffitied with gang signs and other symbols. Manny VO. Surviving off the scraps, like another lost soul, running over the same ground year after year. But it can happen to the very best of us. I think that might be lyrics from Wish You Were Here. Running over the same ground year after year. That might be from that. I think I used some lyrics. Or it was heavily influenced by that song, Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. Curtis is now barking towards Manny. Manny bends down and speaks to Curtis. Someone's hungry this morning. And he feeds him another treat. Manny VO. Take Curtis here, for example. Just how does a Scottish terrier end up out here on the streets of Atlantic City? He guides his cart in front of another abandoned building where a knocked over metal sign reads, Slow, children at play. He reads the sign as he places it into his cart. So there's just a street sign on the ground. That's good metal for the scrapyard. So he's putting it in his cart. Manny VO. I'm sure Curtis has his own story to tell. Now he's passing by more abandoned buildings. Manny VO. I'm sure he'd also agree that life doesn't exactly follow the script we try to write for ourselves. A little bit later, Manny is now tossing an old frisbee towards Curtis, who retrieves it and brings it back. Manny hands him a treat while noticing a young homeless man, Freddie, probably in his 20s or so, really young kid, sleeping on a nearby curb, a bag of garbage serving as his pillow. Manny's talking to Curtis here. Looks like another young buck just moved in. Freddie opens his eyes as Manny and Curtis approach, and then he backs away in paranoid fright. Freddie, hey, what the hell you want, old man? Curtis licks his face. Freddie, you best get that damn dog away from me. Manny chuckles. Manny, better be nice to Curtis if you want to survive out here. Freddie, shit, I ain't even doing nothing. He lays back down, covering his head with the trash bag. Freddie, just let me fucking sleep. Manny places Curtis inside his cart and walks away. Manny, fine by me. Was only trying to show you the ropes. Really don't want to be sleeping out in the open like this. Freddie opens one eye, watches Manny walk away, then rises in frustration. Freddie speaking to himself quietly. Shit. He catches up to Manny and they walk side by side in silence until Freddie notices his gold medal. Freddie, what's up with that gold around your neck? You was on the bobsled team or something? Manny chuckles and clutches the gold medal. Manny, just a bit of a good luck charm. Freddie, aren't you worried about people swiping it? It gotta be worth something. Manny, you threatening to do so, young buck? They share a few moments of awkwardness, then Freddie digs through his cart. He's digging through Manny's cart. Freddie, you got any grub in here? Manny, sorry, you just missed breakfast. Freddie spots some scrap metal sticking out from a sewer grate nearby. He runs and grabs it and then places it inside Manny's cart as Manny nods in thanks. Manny, there's an old Howard Johnson not too far. Probably your best bet for sleeping at the moment. Heard it's pretty safe. Hasn't been completely overrun by addicts yet. Freddy stares towards his feet, then quickly tries to change the topic. Freddy, yeah. So, what are you, anyways? Some kind of guidance counselor to the homeless or some shit? Manny grins and feeds Curtis another treat. Manny, I don't think many people would want counseling from me. I'm just an old man who has been out on these streets for far too long. He holds out his hand to introduce himself. Manny. Manny. Freddy shakes it. Freddy. Freddy. Manny. It's nice to meet you, Freddy. You planning to be out here long or just to fight with the girlfriend? Freddy doesn't answer as he scratches his arm nervously. Manny. Well, at least you got the summer months to figure things out. He hands him a dog treat, and Freddy feeds the treat to Curtis as he gently pets his head. Freddy to Curtis. You ain't so bad, are you now, boy? Manny smiles as Curtis licks Freddy's face. Manny voiceover. Always feels good to make a new friend, no matter where you happen to call home. Alright, moving on. So we get right to these two characters right from the first page. Manny's doing his morning routine. He's handing out bread. He's handing out toys to other homeless people. People probably know him. Like, here comes Manny with his shopping cart full of scrap metal. He's like the mayor of Homeless Town. He's probably a popular, likable guy. And now he meets this young buck that they will form a closer bond as the story goes. Freddy. He's also a likable character. He's just probably down on his luck or something. Alright, let's move on to Stutz' scrapyard a little bit later in that day. So you could already see how this story flows so much easier because it's not dream sequence and then weird mushroom hallucinations. You read a script like this, it really goes by pretty quickly because it's reminiscent of other movies you've watched in the past. You can look at Manny as a Morgan Freeman, as I look at him as like a Giancarlo Esposito. I think he could play a role like that. Freddy, I don't know. I don't really know what I see as Freddy. I don't know, man. Maybe like a young Chris Tucker when he was younger, because Freddy's like either late teenage years or early 20s. I don't know. I don't really know what I see when I read his lines. All right, we're at Stutz' scrapyard. Manny's placing all his scrap metal from his cart inside larger rolling bins. I've never been to a scrapyard like this, but I'm just making shit up. So he's unloading all the scrap metal into these large bins inside this very unorganized warehouse full of scales and other piles of scrap metal, wiring, old appliances. Manny now places a magnet over a silver metal beam, which doesn't attract, as Freddy watches attentively. Manny to Freddy. You see, that's how you know it's aluminum. Plus, you can usually tell by the weight and feel. He places the beam on top of a pile of aluminum in one of the carts, while the yard owner, Stutz, in his 50s, overweight, dirty mesh hat, cleans off his shotgun behind the counter. He sneers as Manny places some old Christmas tree lights into one of the bins on top of the copper wiring. Stutz. What the fuck is this? Christmas in July? You're lucky I'm accepting that. More work than it's worth trying to take that shit apart. Manny. Yeah. I know just how valuable your time is, Stutz. Stutz is now digging out a porno magazine from his cart. And, I'm sorry. Manny takes out a porno magazine from his cart and hands it to Stutz. Manny. Here. Put your mind at ease while we finish sorting. Stutz smiles in appreciation, tips his hat, then flips through the magazine, which now covers his face. Stutz. And don't be complaining about the prices this time. This trickle-down economic shit is bad for everyone. It ain't my damn fault. Manny and Freddie sort through more metal as he lowers the magazine and stares at Manny's gold medal. Stutz, why don't you just give up that gold there? Worth more than both your deadbeat asses combined. Stutz laughs to himself as Manny clutches onto his medal. Manny, how many times I have to tell you, Stutz? It's my good luck charm. He laughs harder. This is Stutz laughing harder. Then stares back at the magazine. Stutz, good luck charm my ass. I don't think it's been working so good. So he's seeing these two, homeless men, and Manny probably is a regular customer, and he always has this gold medal on. Like, very odd combination there. He could go to a pawn shop, probably make a good bit of money off a gold medal from the previous year's Olympics. It's like, I'm just going by Pawn Stars. I'm sure it could be worth a couple $1,000 or something. But like Manny said, it's his good luck charm. All right, a little bit later, we're outside of Stutz' scrapyard as Manny is counting cash. So he just sold his medal. He's counting through the cash that Stutz paid him. As Freddie walks near him on the sidewalk, Manny's cart now empty. Manny, I swear that man rips me off a little more each time I come here. He hands $10 to Freddie. Manny, here, for your help today. Freddie pockets the cash. Freddie, thanks. Manny pockets the rest of the money, then stares inside his empty cart. Manny, oh, I think I forgot my business partner. They walk back inside the scrapyard where Manny spots Curtis chewing on some wires and walks towards him, waving his arms. Manny, Curtis, come here, boy, Curtis. Stutz is driving a forklift nearby, moving some stuff around, while glancing at his porn magazine and smoking a cigarette. Manny, Curtis, get out of there, boy. Manny grabs a dog treat out of his pocket and waves it at him, but Curtis continues to chew the wire as Stutz drives right towards him with the forklift. Freddie sprints over, dives, and saves Curtis at the last second as Manny follows and gently cradles Curtis in his arms. Manny to Stutz, will you watch where you're going? Manny feeds Curtis a treat. Manny, you gotta be more careful, boy. Stutz stares at them from the forklift. Stutz, you're blocking my way. Some people actually have to work, you pathetic deadbeats. Manny, you even qualified to operate heavy machinery like that? Stutz, go dig your lunch from a dumpster, you bum. Get the hell out of here. They walk away, Curtis cradled in Manny's arms. Manny, yeah, see you around, Stutz. Freddie turns back before they exit the yard. Freddie, there a weight limit on that thing? Because one of your ass cheeks will probably put you over. Stutz, oh, fat jokes now? Real original. Manny places Curtis inside his cart, feeds him a treat, as he and Freddie walk farther onto the sidewalk. Stutz is yelling from the back at the yard. Enjoy that trickle down, you bums. They walk farther down the sidewalk, laughing together. Manny, thanks for saving Curtis. Freddie pets Curtis. Freddie, no worries. Maybe this little guy's growing on me. Manny, yeah, he tends to do that. The two new friends walk farther. Yeah, it's always good to have a dog. The audience will love Freddie's character now, supposedly, from what I've read in How to Write a Screenplay, How to Write Likeable Characters, Step 1, Have a Dog in a Scene. So the audience will fall in love with Freddie because he just saved this Scottish Terrier dog. So now he's going to be the fan favorite. Yeah, anyone who saves a dog, it's almost like even more than saving another person. People will love that person. You save a dog, you'll be you'll be a likable person for the rest of your life. You can put that on your resume. I saved a dog's life. Oh, we got to hire this guy. I should put that on my resume from now on. I gave CPR to like 10 dogs in my lifetime. All right, moving on. We're on page 10. So this is a pretty good pace, I think. I can get through this, maybe 40 pages at a time. We're at a different city street as Manny pushes his cart, Curtis resting inside, as Freddy's walking nearby, collecting more scrap metal off the curb, and then places it inside Manny's cart. Manny. You'd be surprised what you can find out here. You know what they say, one man's junk. So he's talking to Freddy, as Freddy's like this manic kid running around looking for scrap metal to put inside his shopping cart. Freddy notices a drug dealer selling drugs nearby to a female prostitute in an alley, and he walks towards him. Manny, hey, young buck, plenty more treasures out here. Freddy waves back to him. Freddy, I'll see you around, Manny, thanks. Manny watches him buy crack off the dealer. Manny, VO. Money earned and gone in a haze of smoke. He guides his cart away as he feeds Curtis another treat. Manny. I guess it's just you and me again today, boy. Freddy smokes crack in the shadow of the alley. Manny, VO. They say youth is wasted on the young, but I've seen all ages pollute their bodies with that poison. His stone face disappears behind a haze of smoke as he stares blankly in front of him. Manny, VO. Over the years, I've learned that there's not much you can do to help. He waves towards some other vagrants nearby, crouched in front of a rundown home, who don't appear very friendly as they drink and smoke. Manny, VO. Most people out here aren't looking for solutions. They're just hunting down their next escape, gathering whatever they can to survive another night in their skin. Yeah, I'm not trying to profile all homeless people as drunks and violent freaks or drug addicts. I'm really not, but you're going to find that out there. If you live on the street, you're going to find that there's going to be people that are just drug addicts. It's a part of that. It is a part of that. Sadly, if you go into tent communities today, because it is still a problem, right? Going to Kensington, I mentioned Kensington. I don't know if it's still the same as it was years ago, but that was only a couple of years ago. The guy had a YouTube channel where he would go through Kensington and just like a Grand Theft Auto. It looked like The Walking Dead, just people all zonked out, man. In the 80s, it was different. I guess it was just more the crack shit. But yeah, I'm not trying to portray that. I'm not trying to make fun of homelessness at all in any of this shit. All right. Now we're at a liquor store. It's just Manny and his dog, Curtis. Freddy's going to come back, but right now he's not a part of this story. Manny's guiding his cart past a liquor store with some new scrap metal inside, and he goes by the front window of the liquor store. Curtis is inside the cart, resting. He's now staring inside the front window at bottles of whiskey, and he's doing his voiceover. I guess everyone has something they're trying to run from. Just then, a shiny limousine drives by right behind him. Inside the limousine, we're going to meet Jackie Crow as an expensive bottle of whiskey is poured into a fancy crystal glass by Jackie Crow. He's 50, in his 50s. He's a former businessman, political blowhard, a bit Rizzo, a bit Trump, as his two male business associates drink with him. Jackie Crow. The potential is indeed very strong, gentlemen. I just need assurances. We're not talking peanuts here. Associate 1. Believe me, there's nothing we want more, Jackie. Associate 2. Assurances will be provided for soon enough. Once you're in office, there is nothing to prevent further development. Jackie sips his whiskey, then lights a cigar. Jackie Crow. I'm just going to call him Jackie, just to make it more easily read. Nothing in life is guaranteed, but there may be some magic left inside me. Always time for a welcome surprise before election day, right? So that he's trying to run for mayor or whatever, or he is running for mayor, and he's saying nothing's guaranteed, but maybe there's some more magic left inside of me. He's now opening the window and he's staring out towards vagrants huddled in front of abandoned buildings and other buildings in disrepair with graffiti everywhere. Jackie. Shake this city down to her core and remind people what it's like to be led by a man with a true vision for the future. He sips more of the whiskey. Jackie. It's time for a real change of the guard, not just superficial lip service. The limo drives past more abandoned buildings, while the men cheers their glasses and drink all together. Jackie. Time to dig right into this cesspool, get our hands dirty again. All right, so we meet kind of the villain of the story, if you want to call it that, based on your perception. We meet Jackie. Now we're going back to inside of an abandoned apartment building. That same day, Curtis is resting in a corner as Manny collects more scrap metal out of the large room, which is already full of rubble and debris. And then after that, he's tearing copper wiring out of the wall. Manny VO. Sure, this is technically illegal and all, but I always try to put the money to good use, so I like to consider it community reinvesting. He finds an old rusted microwave, places it inside his cart, then scans the back wall, where a teddy bear sits on some old blankets with plastic water bottles and sleeping bags covered in dust nearby. He lifts up the dusty teddy bear. Manny VO. Probably a family of squatters lived here some time ago. He gently places the teddy bear onto the floor. Manny VO. Happens a lot more than you would imagine. He now guides his cart out of the room as Curtis follows. Manny VO. I hope they found a more permanent place to call home. Now at nighttime, we're in an alley. Manny is resting against a large cardboard box in this dark alley. His cart is full of scrap metal. So he spent the entire day just hunting down more stuff. And that old microwave is by his side. He's now feeding Curtis a treat and then staring at the stars. And then he grabs his Christian pamphlet, which Joe gave him in Marathon. It's kind of weathered at this point. Maybe it's kind of ripped because he's had it in his pocket for like a year. And now he's flipping to a page. Maybe he has like bookmarks inside or something. Manny VO. You blind fools, which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? That's from Matthew 23:17. So he's just reading random Bible verses in this Christian pamphlet. Again, that's pretty cool. Like, I didn't have that originally in the story, but Joe left him the pamphlet because he didn't want it. So he throws it inside Manny's box, and Manny still has it. And he's kind of using it for inspiration throughout this story. So he puts the pamphlet away in his pocket as Curtis barks, then reaches inside his pocket, and Manny's realizing that he's out of dog treats. Manny, sorry, Curtis. Just hold out until breakfast. I'll get you some real nice treats. He picks Curtis up and crawls into the cardboard box where they cuddle together. Manny, I promise. All right, well, we are going into a dream here, but there's not a lot of this in this episode. This is so far we've gotten through about 13 pages, and we haven't anything weird. It's a very straight, straight-laced, everything by the book, introduce the characters and show their personalities. It's a very generic beginning to this story, but where is it going to go from here? But I did want to put some weirdness in this, so we're going into a dream, Manny's dream, and I recommended Steve Roach, Canyon of Sound. It's just he's one of the best ambient artists. He's been doing it for a long time, since the 80s, even before that. All right, so Manny is laying on a muddy terrain in a marshland, staring towards the dark storm clouds. Then he turns over and he sticks a large straw into the grass, and he's sucking up the soil into his mouth. 4 rodent-sized alien creatures crawl towards him, making eerie beeping sounds as they get closer. The creatures, with no eyes, ears, or noses, wave their long, slimy tentacles towards him. 2 of them implant their tentacles between his fingers, while the other 2 implant their tentacles on his feet. And in this position, they lift him up, levitate him in the Jesus Christ pose, like spreading his arms and legs, or similar to that at least. Maybe it's more of that, the Kinks cover with the guy, whatever that famous pose is, where your legs are kind of spread and your arms are spread. And their alien tentacles are now sucking his blood. Dozens of neon green insects now jump on the alien creatures, and they're draining the blood from them like leeches, and then they fly away as Manny's ghostly body is dropped back onto the grass like it's empty of blood now. Now he's dreaming of Stut's scrapyard. Manny is back to his normal self now in this scene, sitting up against the warehouse wall in the daytime as a heavy rain begins to fall. And Stutz walks by holding the porno magazine over his head to deflect the rain. This is a part of his dream. This is still a dream. The rain morphs into blood now, which, now it's obvious. The rain is becoming blood. It's trickling down onto both of them. Again, trickle down type of symbolic of that era, the trickle down economics. As the storm clouds morph into the shape of a church bell, which rings loudly through the thunder. Stutz. You should have just played the horses. Always could pick out the long shots, couldn't you? Stutz laughs like a maniac while placing his arm around him. Stutz. How's that trickle down working out for you? Now we're at a boardwalk at nighttime. Manny's sitting on a bench, eating an ice cream cone, as a lightning storm flashes in the distance over the ocean. That's the end of Manny's dream here. The next morning, Manny wakes up from his sleep in a fright from inside his cardboard box, as the sound of metal hitting metal echoes loudly nearby, as Curtis rests peacefully next to him. So he gets up, he sticks his head out of the box as the sun is beginning to rise, and watches Freddy, who has drugged out eyes, break open an old rusted window air conditioning unit with a crowbar. Freddy places the broken metal pieces into Manny's cart, which already contains some scrap metal and the old microwave, and then he notices Manny watching him curiously. Freddy, he's kind of in a frantic state. Why is Freddy doing this? Maybe he wants to make more money to buy more drugs, and maybe he just wants to be helpful. It could be either or, maybe both. I don't think Freddy's a bad person. He's just addicted to drugs. Doesn't mean he's a bad person. Freddy, he's still in a frantic state at this point. He's probably didn't even sleep at night. Hey, Manny, sorry for waking you, man. Saw this on a curb. Thought you could use it. Manny grabs the crowbar out of his hands. Manny, well, I appreciate that, but go easy with that thing. You're going to give yourself a hernia. He expertly slides off the back of the air conditioning unit with no problem. Manny, Should be some nice insulated copper back there. He smiles at him and pats him on the shoulder. Manny, it's a good find, a real good find. Freddie smiles back proudly. All right, Manny and Freddie are back together, roaming the streets of Atlantic City for scrap metal. A few hours later, Manny's guiding the cart and it's loaded with scrap metal. It's got the air conditioner inside, partially destroyed in the microwave, and he's at the liquor store again by the front window. Curtis is also inside the cart resting. Freddie strolls nearby, still in this drugged out state, as he swings the crowbar like a baseball bat. Freddie. We get to know more about Freddie, I guess, in this scene. Freddie. I played ball for a good while. Coach even told me I had a shot if I developed a curve. You know how hard it is to throw a damn good curve? Damn near spent 2 weeks straight trying to get it down. Manny stares at the whiskey ads in the front window and towards another old faded Smoking Joe Red Cigarettes advertisement against another wall. Manny VO. Mornings are always the toughest for me. So these are just thoughts he's having to himself as he's looking at the liquor store window thinking maybe I should go buy a bottle of whiskey. Mornings are always the toughest for me. And Freddie's just in his own world, swinging with the crowbar like a baseball bat. This is Freddie rambling quickly. Ended up turning to music for a bit after that. You know, that Philadelphia sound. That's the shit I wanted to expand on. Fuse gospel, funk, reggae, mix all that good stuff together and see what you can come up with in the process. Manny keeps his gaze on the whiskey, paying little attention to his rambling as they walk farther down the street, and Freddie continues. What people like Herbie Hancock, Stevie Wonder, Pharoah Sanders, Lonnie Liston Smith had in mind. They were like the true visionary prophets, man. And you can't forget the Funkadelic. Ever heard Maggot Brain? That shit is so damn crazy. Puts you in another reality, another time altogether, man. He continues ranting and swinging the crowbar wildly in the background as Manny continues to pay him no mind and collects more scrap off a curb. Manny VO. Manny's doing his voiceover as Freddie's in the background speaking. So they're kind of speaking over each other, but Manny's voiceover is more heard than Freddie. Freddie's more like background noise. So Freddie's saying, better yet, it places you outside the entire spectrum of time and space. Another dimension where new colors paint the canvas. Colors no one has even seen before. So he's saying that in the background, but it's kind of muted a little because we hear Manny's voiceover. Haven't had a drink in over 5 years, ever since I've been out here. In a curious way, living on the street actually sobered me up. But the cravings still hit me the hardest, right when I wake. Freddie pats him on the shoulder to get his attention. Freddie, how about Inner Visions? You ever get down to that one? Manny is petting the barking Curtis and also guiding his cart farther. As Freddie starts dancing in the street, Manny quietly to Curtis, we'll get some breakfast soon, boy. Freddie singing, Stevie Wonder, Living in the City. His hair is long, his feet are hard and gritty. He spends his life walking the streets of New York City. He's almost dead from breathing air pollution. He tried and fought, but to him there's no solution. Now Freddie spots some scrap metal nearby on a curb and runs to grab it, and he's still singing Freddie. Living just enough for the city. Now he dumps all these scrap metal bits into the cart, as Manny is still off in his own world. Manny's doing another voiceover, as Freddie is in the background saying, but I dig everything, man, even that old gospel stuff. My ma will play that purified Jesus shit all day. While he's saying that, Manny's voiceover is more of the dominant audio. And he's saying to himself, probably because whiskey was the only thing that got me out of bed back then, only thing I really looked forward to. Freddie claps his hands like a preacher and dances around the cart. Freddie, oh happy day, when Jesus washed, when Jesus washed. So he's all drugged out, just having this really long rant about music and random nonsense. And he's finishing up this short performance of Oh Happy Day, and he's catching his breath. See, I can get down to any style of music, man, as long as it's got that right stream of melody flowing. Just maybe not opera. Haven't had my moment in the sun with opera yet. The two men walk farther, collecting more scrap around the abandoned buildings. Freddie, you know what I mean, Manny? Manny. He gives up and then he runs off to collect more scrap metal as Manny guides the cart. So maybe that's why they work as a team. They're complete opposites. Manny is in his 50s. He's kind of the homeless Jesus that I talked about, or the homeless preacher, whatever you want to call it. And he's just kind of in his own world, going about his daily routine to be able to survive another day or whatever. And Freddie is the young guy who just started sleeping on the street. Whatever happened to his life, I don't really get into his backstory because it's not that type of movie. It really isn't. You could have a movie like that, but I'm not going into Freddie's backstory. How did he end up homeless like this? So they kind of work together like that because they're opposite characters. And maybe their motivations are definitely different, yeah. Manny's kind of doing this just to help people. Whatever he makes off the scrap metal, his motivation is to buy food and to feed other people. And Freddie's just a young, maybe a bit naive, high energy kid, and he's also addicted to crack, so he's got some issues right now. All right, moving on. Now we're at a grocery store inside. A little bit later, as Manny's guiding his cart through the aisle, the cart full of scrap metal, and it's got the old microwave and the air conditioner all crammed inside. And he's looking for dog food to buy for Curtis. Curtis is inside the cart, just chilling out. Manny VO. I've known Curtis as long as I've been living out here. He grabs a box of dog treats off the shelf and feeds one to Curtis. Manny VO. And we've always looked out for each other. The male store manager, this bald, corporate, uptight gentleman, charges towards them. Store manager, hey, you can't be doing that. Manny, doing what? Store manager, opening up boxes before paying. So he's like grabbing the box out of his hand as Manny hands him $4 bills and some change. Manny, and then he grabs the box back. Manny, there you go. You can even keep the change. The store manager forcefully hands him the money back. Store manager, you cannot bring wild animals in here. He places his hand on the cart while Manny lifts Curtis up. Manny, you don't need to worry about him, sir. He's actually quite domesticated. Store manager, and this does not look like an official store cart. Do I need to call the police? Freddie gets into his face. Freddie, hey, leave the man alone. He's just trying to feed his damn dog. What kind of monster are you to deny a dog some treats? He grips onto the cart tighter, the store manager does. There are other shoppers in here that do not deserve to see this type of filth as they shop for their food. Freddie grabs him by the shirt collar. Freddie, who the hell you calling filth, you bald bitch? Now, what am I talking about here? Freddie looks around the aisle and he doesn't notice anyone around. Freddie, ain't not There's not one person in here anyway, sir. Yeah, he's saying it more with attitude, like, ain't not one person in here anyway, sir. Now Manny pulls him away and calms him down. Manny, all right, we get the message, loud and clear. Manny guides the cart towards the cashier. Manny, we'll go pay and be on our way. The manager watches them walk away, then regains his bravado when they're almost out of his sight. Store manager, next time I see you on this premises, I will be forced to call the police. Freddie glances back and gives him the finger. Freddie, man, fuck you. Fuck your premises, you bald, dog-hating, grocery store managing, ignorant, fascist little bitch. All right. Moments later, the two new friends are outside the grocery store. Manny's pushing the cart through the lot as Freddie walks by his side, still kind of angry. And he's feeding Curtis some treats, holding Curtis in his arms. Manny, I've been coming here for years. Never had one problem like that. Freddie bites into one of the treats and he finds it pretty tasty. Freddie with his mouth full. I guess they're under new management or some shit. Manny, entire neighborhood seems to be under new management of late. He bites into another dog treat, then feeds more to Curtis. Freddie with his mouth full. You know, Manny, you should really write a formal complaint to their corporate office. Tell them they're on the brink of losing a loyal paying customer. Manny, changing the subject kind of here. Don't feed him too much. Spoil him and he'll lose his charm and character. He's talking about Curtis there. Freddie cuddles Curtis closer in his arms and barks like a dog. Freddie's just playing along, barking. Roo, roo. Hungry dogs run faster. Ain't that right, Curtis? Curtis and Freddie bark together as Manny hands him $10. Manny, here, in advance for all that scrap you've been collecting for me today. Freddie, you don't have to do all that. Manny, you earned it. Freddie notices his dealer nearby, selling a bag of drugs through a station wagon's driver's side window, and gently places Curtis inside the cart. Freddie, that's a little bit too obvious. I think I get rid of that. He just happens to see his dealer there. And I know people would say, why would Manny give him more money? He knows he's just going to go buy drugs with it. But, they just met. And Manny knows that Freddie's doing this because he needs money. So, even though he doesn't want him to go do drugs, I don't know. It's a weird little scene here, I think. So, instead of seeing his dealer, I think Freddie takes the $10 and just walks away. But we know what he's going to do with the money. It's a bit too, just like the last scene. It's the repeat of that last scene. So Manny's hopeful that he's giving him the $10 and he's hoping that Freddie doesn't go buy drugs. And Freddie's just saying, thanks, I'll see you around, Manny. And he just runs off. So he's definitely going to buy drugs at this point. But I think I'm going to get rid of that scene with he goes to the dealer in the parking lot. All right. Manny does a voiceover as he watches Freddie walk away. Freddie's a real good kid. The dealer hands... Oh, no, that's not going to be a part of this. I can only pray he eventually found something else worth waking up for. So, Manny is a recovering addict himself, yeah. So he can relate to Freddie as well. Is he enabling him by giving him this $10? Well, that's the free market, man. I don't know how to really justify that. Manny's giving this kid $10 for the work he did. He brought him the air conditioner. He's helping him collect all the scrap metal. And he's like, all right, even though you're probably going to go buy drugs with this money, you earn this money, you do what you want. It's a free country, and that's kind of what he's learned on the streets, that you can't really change people until they want to change. That kind of makes sense. I could go with that storyline. So in that scene, I'm gonna edit that out because it's just a repeat of the last one. When we first met Freddie, Manny gives him $10 and he goes to buy crack in the alleyway. So I don't want to do the same scene over again. So I'm gonna get rid of that. All right, moving on. We're at the liquor store again. Manny is pushing his cart, which is now empty, past the front window. It's still daytime. Curtis is resting inside. Manny's counting a small amount of cash, so he just went to Stutz' scrapyard and made more money. But he's shaking his head in frustration and then placing the money back inside his pocket. Manny to himself. There's that trickle down. He gazes at the whiskey bottle inside, then takes out his pamphlet and finds the page that he wants. So this pamphlet isn't a Bible, but it's got a bunch of Bible verses within it. Manny VO. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Matthew 26:41. So that's kind of related to that. Yeah, the flesh is weak. Whether you're addicted to sex or drugs or any other vice, gambling, anything. He puts the pamphlet back inside his pocket and walks away. All right, now we're back at Manny's cardboard box home at nighttime. That night, Manny's on his back, laying down, reading from the pamphlet. Curtis by his side as usual. Manny VO. Doesn't matter where you happen to rest your head at night. The voices deep within are always present, sometimes unrelenting, waiting to pounce at the very first sign of weakness. He places the pamphlet down, then shuts his eyes. Manny VO. Some things change, some things stay the same. Rinse and repeat. All right. He's waking up that morning, crawling out of his box as the sun begins to rise. Another morning in the life of Manny. He stretches his arms high, then notices Curtis barking from the distance. Manny, Curtis, what trouble are you getting into now? At least wait until after. He turns the corner and is shocked to find Deborah, a middle-aged prostitute, crouched against the wall, drinking a bottle of vodka in very bad shape. And then he finishes his thought, breakfast? So at least wait until after breakfast. Remember, Deborah was in that marathon episode. She was one of the strippers inside Joe's video store where he worked. Deborah was kind of the rundown, older stripper, kind of depressed lady. And we find her again on this street corner. Manny finds her. She's chugging the rest of the bottle and she's petting Curtis. And she says to Manny, as she slurs badly, "Nice dog. What is he, Scottish breed?" Now she spits up vomit and passes out while he lifts her head up, gently leans her against the wall, revealing an empty pill bottle behind her. So she's about to die right now. Maybe this is her suicide attempt. Empty bottle of pills. So he's just putting pieces together. This lady's probably gonna die. Manny pockets the bottle of pills as she begins to convulse on the sidewalk. Then he picks Curtis up and walks towards his cart. Calmly to himself, he's saying, "Looks like we're playing ambulance this morning." So he's probably used to this shit. He's probably done this before. Maybe when Joe met him in Marathon inside the free clinic, maybe he was doing something similar. His life is just to be of service to the other homeless people. That's how he views his identity. All right, we'll get into that more later, but let's continue. down a city street now as Manny is breathing heavily, quickly guiding his cart past abandoned buildings and crossing traffic. As Deborah drools inside the cart and Curtis is on top of her licking her face. So he really is playing ambulance. He put Deborah inside his cart and he's pushing her down the street with Curtis inside licking her face as she's passed out. Now they're at the free clinic a little bit later that day. Manny is struggling to push the cart up the stairs towards the entrance. As Deborah is unconscious inside, Curtis is barking towards her. Manny, I know, Curtis. I'm going as fast as I can here. Manny opens the front door and guides the cart inside. A little bit later, inside the free clinic, this is probably maybe an hour later or so, Manny feeds Curtis a treat as the dog rests in his lap, while other vagrants and poor families are sitting and snoring around him, including an injured bus driver, male in his 60s, who presses down a cloth over a stab wound on his thigh. Injured bus driver. Motherfucking bullshit. They should just burn this whole goddamn city to the ground. And I mean that shit. Manny tries not to make eye contact with him as he pets Curtis, injured bus driver. Just trying to do my goddamn job, drive people from point A to wherever the fuck point B may be. And what do I get for my hard work and dedication? Manny finally stares up towards him, injured bus driver continuing. A goddamn switchblade in my goddamn leg is what I get. So he's kind of a disgruntled older employee. He's probably been driving buses for like 30 years and he got stabbed in the leg this morning. In the background, we see Joe, the janitor from Marathon. He's replacing a fluorescent light bulb in the ceiling, standing on a ladder. He's fastening the plastic light cover and then he steps down from the ladder with the old bulb. And then he notices the glimmer of the gold medal on Manny's chest. Remember, this is Joe's gold medal. This is Smokin' Joe, the chain-smoking marathon runner from the Marathon episode. He's about a year older here. And when we left him in that episode, at the end, he became a janitor in the free clinic. So he's been there for like a year working. He grins and walks towards Manny with a slight limp. So he still has a bit of a limp. While the bus driver checks his stab wound and winces. Injured bus driver. People didn't get stabbed or shot back in my day. We used our fist like real men do. Shit just don't make no sense out here no more. Joe shakes Manny's hand, then points to his gold medal. Joe, still hanging on to that, I see. Manny places the pamphlet inside his pocket and chuckles. Manny, my good luck charm. You don't want it back now, do you? Joe, nah, that ship has sailed. Looks better on you anyway. He dusts off his janitor's uniform. Joe, on the bigger conquest nowadays, you want to believe the size of the rats in this dump. They share a laugh, and then Manny continues. Well, it's good to see you doing so well for yourself. Joe, you here for your monthly checkup? Deborah rolls herself into the lobby in a wheelchair while the female nurse chases after her. So Deborah survived. As Manny was waiting in this lobby, they were probably pumping her stomach or some shit. All right, so Deborah's getting wheeled out by a nurse. Or no, I'm sorry, she's wheeling herself out while a nurse chases after her. And Manny's saying, no, just helping out a stranger. And he motions towards her. Manny, there she is now. Deborah rides the wheelchair towards the two men and looks at Joe. Deborah, Joe? The nurse grabs the chair handles. Nurse, Miss, you need to stay in bed until the doctor says we can release you. Deborah slaps her hand away. Deborah, Oh, fuck off. This is a free country. The nurse walks away. Nurse. Fine, do whatever the hell you want. You're the professional. The bus driver limps towards her, towards the nurse. The bus driver is limping towards the nurse. And he says in a whiny voice, Can you please help me now? She leads him through the door, and she's kind of in an agitated state after Deborah cursed her out. All right, it's just a little stab wound. Stop being such a little baby about it. Deborah smiles at Joe. Deborah, you got a smoke? Joe reaches into his pocket and hands her a cig from a Red's light pack. Deborah, you on to the lights now, I see. Joe, yeah, can't quite shake the habit. Deborah, you still get 'em for free? He lights up her smoke, then lights one for himself. Joe, perks of being smoking Joe went up in smoke. I think it's better if I said, perks of being smoking Joe went up in smoke years ago. Or a year ago. I don't know. However the actor wants to say that. Perks of being smoking Joe went up in smoke, sadly. Sadly went up in smoke. And now Deborah is gripping onto Manny's knee as she puffs her cigarette. Deborah, if it wasn't for this guy here, I'd be roadkill right now. Manny grins, interpreting this as her being grateful, as she shoves him onto the shoulder, kind of aggressively. Deborah, thanks a whole lot, asshole. Next time, please just mind your fucking business. So she really was trying to kill herself. Now she's like, this fucking asshole saved my life. The nurse walks back inside the lobby and spots Deborah and Joe smoking. Nurse, hey, take it outside with the smoke. Deborah gives her the finger, then rides the wheelchair to the front door. Deborah, don't you know who you're talking to, lady? This is Smoking Joe, Olympic hero. Show some respect. Joe smiles towards the nurse, then helps Deborah out the door. Joe, I'll be back in a bit, taking an early lunch. Manny places Curtis inside the cart and guides it towards the exit, following after them. Manny to the nurse. You provide this community a great service. God bless. She smiles back wryly and then lights up a smoke of her own. Nurse. Would you just get the hell out of here already? Manny nods his head and walks out. So yeah, I'm sure this nurse is a heroic person, heroic woman here. But it's the 80s and she's probably making like next to no money for all the work she does, so she doesn't give a shit. She's telling these people to leave because they're smoking and then she's lighting up a cigarette herself. All right. Moving on, this story now. Deborah plays kind of a supporting role in this. I wanted to use some of the characters from Marathon, and she's a good character. I actually picture like Courtney Love. I picture a woman like that who's just kind of intimidating and kind of at times looking like a mess, I guess. All right, we're at a dive bar in Atlantic City later that day. Maybe I'll read 10 more pages or so. I'm on page 27 or 28 about. We're at a dive bar as a few depressed regulars drink at the bar top, music playing from an old jukebox against the wall behind them, as Deborah sits by them and drinks shots from a cheap vodka bottle in front of her. Joe and Manny are tossing darts behind her. Manny's cart parked against the sidewall, Curtis inside resting. Joe takes his turn and hits a bullseye as he pumps his fist in victory. Joe, go again? Manny smiles. Manny, I think I've had enough ass whooping for one day. They shake hands and walk towards Deborah, where Joe grabs the now empty bottle of vodka next to her. Joe, you really think you should be drinking right now? You really think you should be drinking right now? I guess that sounds alright. She snatches the bottle and drinks the last few drops. Deborah, just had my stomach pumped. I need to refuel. I need to refuel. He places his arm around her. Joe, is that bad out there? She lights up a cigarette, then tosses her shot glass blindly behind her, hitting another drunk patron who doesn't seem to mind that much. Deborah, I don't quite have the guts to jump off a building yet, so I'm taking a slower, more leisurely route. She stumbles over to the jukebox, puts in a quarter, and plays the Pogues' Dirty Old Town, then walks back to the bar and places her hand on Manny's shoulder. Deborah, would you like to dance? Before Manny can respond, she pulls him off his chair and they slow dance awkwardly together by the side of the bar. During this dance, they're barely moving much at all, as Joe smiles and lights a cigarette as he watches them. Manny VO. Might be hard for some of you to believe. She's cuddling closer into his chest as they sway slowly to the music. Manny VO. But that was the first time I'd ever danced with a woman. She leans in closer, Deborah whispering, thanks for saving my life. So even though she was like hostile in the beginning, she's like, you should have minded your business. I wanted to die, idiot. Now she's like, you know, this guy, he's nice. He was just trying to save me. So she's saying, thanks for saving my life. Maybe she's conflicted. Maybe this is a cry for help. I don't know. She's older though. She's probably in her 50s or so. 40s or 50s. So she kisses Manny on the cheek, and then she rests her head on his shoulder and shuts her eyes. So it's just a cute little scene here. We get to know Deborah a little. It sort of sets the tone of what, like the Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan era was like. And they're kind of similar, right? Similar conservative philosophies. What was that like for people like Manny and Joe and Deborah and other people in the lower class? What was that like for people like that? That's what I'm going for, to set the mood. And that's a really good song. The Pogues, I really do love that album. Rum Sodomy. Dirty Old Town is like one of my favorite songs. It's so good. I think it's a waltz. 1, 2, no, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Na in a dirty old town, dirty old town, dirty old town. It's such a good song. Take a break and listen to that song. It's so good. I'm going to actually read the lyrics. I'm going to take a little break from reading the script just to clear my head a little. Dirty Old Town lyrics. If you don't know the Pogues, yeah, amazing band. Dirty Old Town lyrics. I didn't know of them until later on in my life. Probably recently, maybe 5, 6 years ago. I know that Decemberists mentioned that album. Colin Meloy was like, Rum Sodomy is one of the most perfect albums. So that's the one I really like, yeah. I met my love by the gasworks wall, dreamed a dream by the old canal, kissed my girl by the factory wall, dirty old town, dirty old town. Clouds are drifting across the moon, cats are prowling on their beat, springs a girl on the street at night, dirty old town, dirty old town. Yeah, it's a great song, man. I heard a siren from the docks, saw the train set the night on fire, smelled the spring on the smoky wind, dirty old town, dirty old town. There's a lot of instrumental breaks. Really good song. It fits that mood so well. If you're inside a dive bar, this will be like the most perfect song to set the mood of a dive bar. I don't know the rest of this. I'm going to make me a good sharp axe, shining steel, tempered in the fire. I'll chop you down like a dead old tree. Dirty old town, dirty old town. I met my love by the gasworks wall. Dreamed a dream by the old canal. Kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town. Yeah, go check it out. It's really good. What is Dirty Old Town written about? Oh shit. It's not even by the Pogues, it's by somebody, Ewan McCall captures the grit of industrial life. I didn't know that. I thought they wrote that song. Did not know that. Learn something new every day, right? I thought the Pogues wrote that song. But it's like an old Irish type of song. Irish gritty song about industrial life. That is not a good Irish accent. Written in 1949. Yeah, that's a good one, man. Yeah, so that's one of the songs I mentioned before too. When I said I made a soundtrack for this album, for this story, that was one of the first songs I thought of. All right, let's keep reading. I got maybe 10 pages to go, and I'll take a couple hours to get my thoughts, regather my thoughts. All right, we're still following these three characters, Joe, Deborah, and Manny. They leave the dive bar. They're walking away down a city street, and Curtis is in Deborah's arms now. As the three of them walk, Manny's still guiding his cart behind them. As the three get closer to all this racket, they see a crowd of people gathered across the street making noise, so they go check it out, and they find Jackie Crow and his supporters holding a rally, and Jackie Crow's on stage, and he's either through a bullhorn or a microphone. I don't know how I picture it. We can build this city back up. And the crowd is cheering louder as he continues. Jackie, clean out the filth, the violence, the drugs, which has infected this once great city's progress. Deborah, Joe, and Manny are now watching him in the middle of the rally as he continues. Jackie, when I become mayor, I promise to make it safe for anyone to walk the streets of this city at night without fear of the vagrants, the criminals, and the addicts. It's time to bring Atlantic City back to her glory days. Who's with me? And the crowd is chanting, Jackie, 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 Jackie. The chants and cheering continue as Manny, Joe, and Deborah walk away from the rally, not feeling as enthusiastic. Deborah still slurring her speech here. Another false prophet. She reaches into Joe's pocket, takes out a cigarette, and lights it. Deborah, promising gold at the end of this shit-stained rainbow. Keep your hand over your hearts and vote to line my already overflowing pockets. And thusly, the fat get fatter. She places her hand over her heart and marches away like a soldier in formation. Deborah, keep your heads up, gentlemen. Storm's coming. Manny and Joe just stand there and watch her stumble away. So Deborah's kind of leading those few scenes there. She's the most strong character there. All right, we're going to do a series of shots now. This is page 30, almost a halfway point, kind of breaking up this story. We have all the characters, and we have a general representation of where the story's going. Jackie is the corrupt, well, we don't really know that, but he's the wealthy business owner trying to get involved in politics. Of course, that's relevant, not just in today in America, but everywhere. It's always like a cycle like that, right? And Manny's kind of the opposite of that, so obviously their paths are going to cross somehow. That's how I'm setting this story up so far. I just wanted to show some scenery of Atlantic City to create what it was like in the 1980s at this time period. So we're seeing abandoned buildings with graffitied walls. We're seeing other construction sites, maybe parking lots, as the casinos need more parking lots. And we see fancy new casinos from the early 80s. We're now going through some expensive beachfront property. We're looking at locals fishing off the pier, and we see ocean waves and a packed beach of tourists. And then we're going by some of the boardwalk shops, carnival vendors, and an ice cream shop. All right, it's just to set the scene there. This could be like a 15 to 20-second series of shots, just establishing shots. Is that what it's called? To give people, to remind people we're in the 1980s. So you really have to make it relevant to how Atlantic City would have looked back then. All right, so now we're going to be on the boardwalk. We ended that series of shots on the boardwalk, looking at an ice cream shop. So that's still in our view, but we're a little bit farther away on a bench as Joe and Manny sit together on this bench facing the ocean. Maybe the ice cream shop is in the background, or however you want to set this up, man. They're eating chocolate and vanilla ice cream cones, and Manny's cart is still there with some scrap metal inside nearby. Curtis is resting on Joe's lap, licking his vanilla ice cream as Joe pets him. Joe, fuck politics. Never really understood any of it anyway, to be honest. Manny licks his chocolate ice cream. Manny, it's not so complicated. You give people chocolate and vanilla. Tell them one will save them from the abyss and the other will steal their retirement money and lead to chaos, disease, and destitution, and vice versa. Peaceful ocean waves roll onto the shore. As Joe licks his ice cream, Joe, and what about strawberry? Manny chuckles, then licks his ice cream. Manny, strawberry doesn't even exist. Last thing you want to do is give people actual choices. The two men laugh together as they gaze out towards the ocean. Manny, just chocolate and vanilla. Joe, what about people who like both flavors? Manny, they'll be the ones smiling wide as each side takes turns screwing them over. They share a brief silence. Joe, maybe we should have gotten pizza instead. They eye each other and laugh some more. Manny, I think your outlook may be healthier. Fuck politics. They cheers their ice cream cones, then gaze out towards the ocean and listen to the waves. Manny, voiceover. So maybe you're actually drifting above them now with the ocean, and Manny's doing a voiceover. Always good reconnecting with old friends. Sun seems to shine a little brighter in those moments. He's now clutching onto his gold medal, continuing the voiceover. Fond memories emerge from the shadows, provide a new perspective on things, or remind you of who you used to be. Joe rises, shakes Manny's hand, then places Curtis on his lap. Joe, I gotta be getting back. Place falls apart without me. He's kind of making a joke there. Like, how will these doctors and nurses survive without Joe the janitor? I'm not making fun of custodial workers or janitors, whatever the fancy term is, but he's just trying to make fun of himself there as he limps away and he says, "See you around, Manny." Manny waves at him, then sits on the bench and pets Curtis and watches the ocean waves. All right, so that's a good little scene. Manny and Joe are just pretty cool friends like that, kind of reconnecting a little over ice cream, talking a little politics. And I do like that scene. It's a little corny when you say It's just chocolate and vanilla. Like, what about strawberry? Strawberry doesn't exist. The last thing you want to do is give people actual choices. It's kind of a rip off from George Carlin. George Carlin's political philosophy, a little the illusion of choice in America and democracy. I'm sure all over the world, where yeah, Always Sunny in Philadelphia had a thing like that too. When the gang runs for office, one of the best episodes, where they say something like that, like, "Oh, who am I gonna vote for? This side or that side? Which side's gonna bang me in the ass?" I forget how they wrote that scene, but it's pretty funny. All right, now that night we're at a city street. Manny has Manny just had a busy day. He just saved Deborah's life and he reconnected with his friend Joe. So maybe he's a little bit happier now. It takes his mind off his wanting to start drinking again if he does things like that. Idle hands, you know that saying, idle hands is the devil's best friend or whatever it is. If you keep busy like Manny tries to do, he said he got sober when he became homeless. So he was an alcoholic until he became homeless. And then he had like a new purpose in life, trying to help other people. So yeah, Manny's a really cool character in this. He's guiding his cart down the street at night. Curtis inside, under some more scrap metal. Manny stops and feeds Curtis a treat and pets his head. And he says to Curtis, "Don't worry, there'll be plenty of better junk out here tomorrow." As he guides his cart farther, he spots a shadowy figure passed out on a curb. Manny. Freddy? He leans close to the unconscious Freddy on the ground. Manny. Freddy? He sits him up and pats him on the back. Well, I wrote as Curtis barks, but I don't know how hard it is to get a dog to bark. You don't need that. He's just sitting him up and trying to wake him up. Manny. Wake up, Freddy, wake up. Come on now, young buck. Freddy is spitting out some phlegm as he finally comes to, his eyes all disoriented, as Manny sighs in relief and rubs his back. Manny. You'll be all right. Just breathe. Freddy finally gets to his feet and wipes dirt off his clothes, then picks up his crack pipe off the pavement. But Manny instantly grabs it out of his hand and launches it down the street. Freddy. Hey, what the hell, old man? Manny grabs his shoulders and stares him in the eyes. Manny. That's the second time today I almost had to serve last rites. Anyone else would have left your stupid ass to rot. I know how the story usually ends. You gotta get clean. Freddy sits down on the curb with his head in his hands. Freddy. Shit, you don't think I know that? Manny sits next to him as he sobs. Freddy. Just tell me what to do, man. So yeah, Freddy knows he's completely addicted to crack or whatever the fuck. And yeah, he's just at his last, kind of desperate. He doesn't know how to stop it. He's so addicted to it. That's all his only motivation in his life is to do more crack, because supposedly that's how addicting it was from watching shows like Snowfall, which was an amazing show. I'm guessing that's a true story, how the CIA was like putting crack. They were a part of the crack business to fund weapons for anti-communist campaigns and stuff. There is some truth to that. There's another movie about that. But the show Snowfall was really, really well done. I think it takes part in Los Angeles, and it shows the 80s crack epidemic in that inner city community. Really amazing show, man. I got really addicted to it. Great actors in that. So I'm guessing crack is like just in the 80s. I don't think people really do crack. Is it still a drug? But I don't think it is. You don't really hear much about it, but in the 80s, it was crack, 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 cocaine, cocaine, cocaine. That's all people talked about. Um, yeah, Escobar, and I don't know. That was the big thing. Cocaine cowboys. And it just seemed like crack was the thing that people just couldn't get off. It was just a super addictive drug, whatever it does to your brain, and really sad stories. And I would recommend Snowfall. That kind of opened my eyes to some other angles of it. So yeah, maybe because Manny says it. He just had to save Deborah from overdosing earlier that day, and now he finds Freddie at night about to die from an overdose, and he's like, "Damn it, kid." It sounds like an after-school special, but you can see Manny's motivation here. Like, for fuck's sakes, man, I had to save one woman's life earlier. Now I have to save your dumbass. For fuck's sakes, man, you gotta get clean. Or whatever the fuck. Yeah, it sounds like I'm being preachy here, but I don't think that's Manny saying, like, he's not trying to be holier than thou. He doesn't want to see him die. Like, that's a fair thing to say. He just met this kid, but they feel some kind of a friendship. And he's like, dude, I just don't want to see you die. You got to quit this shit. All right. So now we're at that abandoned hotel. Earlier, Manny said there's some Howard Johnson, if you want to go sleep somewhere, not in the street. So we're at this hotel. It doesn't have to be a Howard Johnson. That's just the first thing that came to my head. For some reason, I just remember that was a pretty popular motel, hotel, whatever you call it. So we're outside this abandoned hotel. Manny's guiding his cart towards the front entrance. This building is completely in tatters and all fucked up. Broken windows, graffiti everywhere. Freddie's walking next to him, munching on a loaf of bread as Curtis is cradled in his arm. This is the same night Manny found him about to die from the crack overdose, or just passed out on the street. I don't know if he was about to die, but he was all banged up, just laying in the middle of the street. So that same night, he's taking them to this hotel to sleep, and they're going through other addicts that are against the wall, smoking crack and other drugs. And Deborah is also here in the shadows buying crack and smoking it from a crack pipe. She sees Manny, and then she steps into the darkness against the wall as Manny eyes Freddie. So Manny took him here not knowing that it's a hangout for all the drug addicts. So he's saying, Manny's speaking to Freddie now. Maybe I should keep you company for a few nights. Because he knows if he leaves him here alone, he's going to just start doing drugs again. Freddie nods as they both walk together towards the entrance past more addicts and vagrants. So at one point, Manny thought this was a clean place to sleep without the drug addicts everywhere, but now they're invading this place as well. Maybe they got kicked out of somewhere else. They needed a new place to squat and get high. So inside the abandoned hotel, moments later, Manny is pushing his cart to a back wall away from the squatters and addicts. As Curtis rests inside, Freddie is following behind him, gazing around at all the desperate faces. They find some old towels in a janitor's closet, hidden behind some old folding chairs, and they kind of make a bed on the floor out of the chairs and blankets. Freddie lays down on the bed, stretches out, and eyes Manny. Freddie, I can get clean, Manny. I promise you that. Manny stares back, not really convinced, as he places another towel on top of him. Manny, just try to get some sleep. Freddie shuts his eyes as Manny sits against the wall next to him, one hand on his cart. So maybe he's kind of paranoid that these other drug addicts are going to come steal his shit. he scans the room of these degenerates and vagrants, and then he takes out his Christian pamphlet and flips to a page, and now he's speaking to himself. Manny V.O. Upon this rock I will build my church. He places the pamphlet back inside his pocket and then picks Curtis out of the cart and pets him as Manny continues the voiceover. And the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Matthew 16:18. So that's a pretty good midpoint of this story, page 34, where he says, upon this rock I will build my church. Like that old, that's a pretty common quote that people say. So he's looking around at all these people inside a somewhat still nice building, but kind of run down as well. And he's getting these ideas like, maybe I can do something here. Something's clicking inside of his head at this point. All right, nearby is Fran. Fran's in his 40s, and he's sleeping, resting against an opposite wall with his daughter, Sammy, who's about 10. Sammy sits up and smiles towards Manny and Curtis, and then she sneaks over, and she goes up to Manny and says, "Can I play with him?" Fran gazes towards Manny suspiciously, and Fran is doing loud whispers now. "Sammy, get back over here." Manny smiles towards her as Curtis licks her face. "Manny, you better wait until the morning." So Sammy just walked over there to play with the dog, and so she's smiling at Manny, then walks away, and she cuddles into Fran's side, her father, as Manny stares up at the shadows on the ceiling, which form a large cross shape. All right, the plot thickens. Should I keep going here? I'm on page 35. I'm going to stop here. I think this is a good place to stop. We're at the hotel, this abandoned hotel. Manny's getting some crazy ideas floating around his head, and we can come back and see what his plan is now. He's surrounded in this room by a bunch of vagrants and other drug addicts, degenerates, but also normal people that just need a place to sleep, homeless people that aren't drug addicts. Again, I'm not trying to portray it like they're all vagrants and homeless people. I don't even think you're supposed to use that term anymore, which I don't really know the reason. Somebody told me that actually. The politically correct term. What is the politically correct term for homeless? Because I don't know. What is the politically... I think it's something stupid, to be honest. Correct term for homeless people. Maybe vagrants is bad too. So, all right. The most accepted term for homeless are unhoused or houseless. What is the difference between homeless and houseless? For real, dude. Like, that's ridiculous to me. Or the preferred person first phrase, people experiencing homelessness. This is exactly Orwellian George Carlin shit. George Carlin has a bit about soft language. So instead of saying homeless people, if you call them unhoused or houseless, or people experiencing homelessness, because it makes them appear more like people, like, come on, man. People who make shit up like this are doing it for some kind of fucked up reason, just to fuck with people. If you name them something different, then the problem's gonna disappear. No, there's no more homeless people. We just changed the term to houseless people. There's plenty of them, but there's no more homeless people. I don't understand. People are going to use this term, people without homes. Oh, look at all these people without homes. I understand the general philosophy like that, but I think it's stupid to, just my own personal kind of pet peeve. When people play around with language and they claim this superiority, like, no, we're better than you. We don't call them homeless. You still call people homeless. We call them houseless. See, we have more compassion. We have more legitimate concern for these people because we changed the definition or we changed the linguistics. George Carlin had the whole bit on this about soft language passing away. He does it so well. George Carlin's a good thing that I'm talking about now because I just mentioned him earlier, how much of an influence his stand-up has been. George Carlin, soft language. Look it up if you want to see the whole thing. I'll see if I can read a couple lines that are funny, that kind of portray what I'm talking about. And he was doing this in the early 90s, man, in 1990. You sanitize language, yeah, to hide the reality and to kind of push the shit under the carpet. Like shell shock. Instead of shell shock, we say battle fatigue, operational exhaustion, post-traumatic stress disorder. Now it's just called PTSD, but instead of toilet paper, it's bathroom tissue. The dump is now the landfill. Used cars become previously owned transportation. Old people become senior citizens. Constipation is occasional irregularity. Poor people are economically disadvantaged. Instead of dying, we pass away or expire or suffer a terminal episode. It's funny, but it's the Orwellian language. If you make the word sound softer, then society's problems will magically disappear. There's no more shell shock. The soldiers coming back from whatever war and they're all fucked up. They have PTSD. Now that's a pretty common term. I use it all the time too. I don't remember shell shock. That's from World War I or World War II or battle fatigue. Some of the phrases like that, yeah. It's funny, but it's such a bit of truth in satire that makes you question, like, what the fuck? Why am I gonna call a homeless person people without homes? Or just like he said about poor people, they're not poor people, they're economically disadvantaged. Like, who's sitting in a room deciding this shit? It's so ridiculous, man. But whatever, it's not that much of a big deal to get all agitated about. But my main thing is I don't want to portray homeless people in this story as all drug addicts or all crazy vagrants that, I don't know. When I had my brief 2 nights homeless about a year ago, I got evicted and I was homeless for 2 nights. And then the police talked to me later and I'm like, I can't believe people are homeless. How do they survive out there? And the one guy was like, some people choose to be homeless. That was from the police officer. Some people actually want to be homeless. They don't want to have all the stress of social living, but how the fuck do you survive, man? Like, I was going, after that happened to me, I was like, I'm going to go help people. So I went to the Trenton area soup kitchen and I was going there maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, just to serve whatever they told me to do. Sometimes I would just stand there and hold cereal boxes. One time I was back in the kitchen doing stuff like just putting potatoes on a plate or running trays to some of the people that come into the lunch service or dinner service. And I guess anyone could come and eat there. You don't have to prove that you're homeless, but I think you do have to kind of, at least if you're getting more than one meal, you might have to provide some identification or something. But I don't know how people survive, especially in cold winter. Like, how the fuck would you survive through a winter in like Chicago if you're homeless. I'm just thinking Chicago because it's actually like below zero. But New Jersey gets just as cold. They do the code blue, where I don't know how that works. What the police and bus drivers have to pick up anybody so people don't just freeze to death. I don't know how it works. Like, how does code blue work? Because I should probably look that up. How does code blue work? 'Cause I don't know how people survive. So yeah, I'm not trying to make light of this situation. How does code blue work? Like, I don't know, because you hear that term. It's a hospital emergency announcement. Oh no, that's not it. That's not what it means. This is something different. This is about hospital emergencies or something. How does code blue work? Homeless people, houseless people, those without homes. Okay, whenever the weather gets 32 degrees or less, it authorizes agencies to provide emergency shelter, open warming centers, and use outreach teams to transport individuals to warm spaces. If they want to, you can't force these people. So like buildings like libraries or community centers, maybe like train stations. But I remember going to Atlantic City. I would take the train all the time because I lived nearby. I would just take the train to Atlantic City. And if I had to wait for the train for an hour after when I was trying to come home, the police would come inside and like if anyone was sleeping on the benches, they would kick them out. I don't know if they would do that in the wintertime though. So I don't know. I'm just saying I don't know how homeless people survive like that. That was my whole thing. I went homeless like in October for 2 nights, and I wanted to die at that point. Like I seriously just wanted to die. It was that painful. It wasn't like freezing cold, but I was all wet and like probably going through the early stages of hypothermia because it was raining out. So I went to a jungle gym and just tried to sleep inside. I was staying up all night trying to survive in the porta potty. Took a huge shit in the porta potty, and then I was just screaming for 911 to just come pick me up at that point because I just wanted to die. That's how bad it was for me after like the first night, I think. And it was so fucking terrible. So I don't know how people survive, man. Maybe I should have found an abandoned building and I could have stayed out of the rain at least. Maybe I could have made it a little bit longer, but still, how do I get food? How do I get anything? I was drinking water from sprinklers. I was walking through a park nearby and just filling up a water bottle that I took out of the trash and filling it up with sprinkler water. Luckily, this park was running the sprinklers like at 2 a.m. or whatever it was. It was so fucking terrible. Like, granted, I was going through some weird shit even before that. I was having some eating problems, food problems, where I wasn't eating too much, even leading up to that, because I knew I was about to get evicted. So for a couple weeks, I wasn't eating that much. For some reason, I was like, oh, I'm just going to go on a hunger, starve myself to death or something. I think that's what I was kind of thinking in my head at that point. So I could barely make it 1 night, 2 nights. And it was fucking terrible, man. I don't know how people do it. I'm sure if I would interview EMT people or police or firefighters, they would be like, yeah, we find dead people all the time, dead homeless people, because they just don't want help, or I'm sure there's a lot of mental illness as well. I don't know how it works. I really don't know. Because even in a code blue situation, you can't force these people to go inside a shelter. Some of them are just don't want to be around people and stuff. when I went to that Trenton area soup kitchen, that was one of the things. Some people don't want to eat inside, so they just take their food to go or whatever. But it was a good experience to do stuff like that, but it wasn't really what I expected. I expected it to be like a depression, like the Great Depression era, where they're just putting this slop onto plates. But it wasn't like that. It's actually a really nice place, a nice cafeteria with really good food. Like the food was actually really good. So it's kind of weird. I would go back and still do it, but right now I'm not doing anything else. And besides the food service, they would actually teach people art and have music and have movie watching. So it was more of a community center. Anyone could go and participate in those events like that. They give you art supplies if you want to do that. Look it up. It's really interesting. If you look up Trenton Area Soup Kitchen, PBS did like a 15-minute news report on task on the art program. They actually some amazing pieces of art that they kind of display in this gallery. It's an interesting story. I didn't get into it as much as I wanted to. But yeah, so of course I'm not trying to make fun of homeless people. I wrote this story in 2022, probably before all this shit happened to me in my life. But I read it now and I kind of notice some of the similarities, some of the connections. Maybe I should have found an abandoned hotel somewhere and just slept inside. For some reason, I just was trying to sleep on a bench, and then I was like, I just wanted to get out of New Jersey. I was gonna walk to Delaware, like, oh, Delaware is my promised land. I'll find peace and opportunity and success in Delaware. That was my like beacon of hope. But as I tried to do that, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna walk to Delaware right now. I tried to. I was like, that was my first instinct. I'm just gonna walk into Delaware. Maybe if I go to a different state, it would change things for my life. But that didn't happen either. So yeah, it was weird. It was a weird moment of my existence, because when you don't know where your food's coming from, you don't know where your water, where you're gonna sleep. And that was only for 2 nights for me. Like, people do this for years and years. In this story, Manny has probably been homeless for like, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And there are people like that, lifelong homeless people. They don't ever come back to, or they prefer it. Like the one officer said to me, I don't really understand what he was talking about. Why would some people prefer to live in a dark alley somewhere without security or anything? I don't know. I'm not educated enough to that degree to really understand it. I know there's also the veterans that come back and they kind of are fucked up from their wartime and whatever they experienced, the PTSD shit. So there's a lot of veterans that kind of fall on hard times and turn to drugs. That's kind of a common story you hear from people. But I didn't really include that much of that in this story. Like, some of the people that are, as this story continues, there's plenty of other extras as homeless people. I don't want to talk about it yet until part 2, but what Manny's trying to do to kind of clean up this area, as opposed to what Jackie Crow is trying to do to win his election. It's a complete correlation, or they're completely different sides of the coin. Manny and Jackie Crow, completely different sides of the coin. How do you give people opportunity, a chance to build themselves back up? Do you do it? Well, I'll get to it when I talk about it in the second part of this. I don't want to give everything away and talk too much about things I'm going to be reading. But when we come back, we'll be on page 35. And I'll get more into those themes that this could be a very, just like marathon. I keep having the idea actually. I'm just scatterbrained right now, but I said marathon would be a very high potential script to be made into a movie because the Olympics are coming back to LA right now in 2 years. People are probably training for the Olympics right now. It's a story of a chain smoking marathon runner is relevant to what we're living in right now because the Olympics are coming back and some of the political climate that's happening. I remember not too long ago, I think the Republican convention was in Philadelphia. So before that happened, they cleared out all the homeless people from Camden and from certain areas, I think, where a lot of them would congregate to kind of make the city appear better, a cosmetic fix like that. That's all that language is. Going back to the language, you can't say homeless. You got to say people without homes. Like, I don't care, man. I'm just saying a word because that's what it is. You're homeless. You're a person without a home. You're homeless. It's the same fucking thing. Houseless. Well, how is houseless any different than homeless? I don't understand. I don't get am I missing something? Like, I'm just being honest about it. I don't understand what the difference is. It just seems like bureaucratic people going, oh, we'll solve this problem. You want to solve homelessness? Well, you just call them something different. Don't call them homeless anymore, stupid. That's how you solve the problem. Bang. What do we have? 10,000 homeless people in the city? Now we don't call them homeless anymore. Snap your finger. Now we have 0 homeless people. Oh, those are just people without homes. They're not homeless. I don't understand it. Like, it's such a weird. I can't get into that mindset of the people sitting in a room going like, oh no, it's not poor people. It's economically disadvantaged people. That makes it sound better. No, there's no more wealth gap. There's no more trickle down economics. You just call poor people economically disadvantaged. That solves the problem. That's how I view stuff like that. Like, it's really ridiculous, but maybe there's something I'm missing that would convince me otherwise. But I don't want to get deeper into this story yet. There's still a lot to talk about in part 2. And what I was going to say is I could almost see myself creating a mini series, like maybe 4 or 5 episodes called Atlantic City. It would be episode 1 would be Marathon. This would be episode 2. And then maybe Man and Deer could fit in that. But if I was hired by a production company to write a drama, I would make it like Atlantic City. That would be the title of it. And it would be led by these characters, Joe, Manny, Deborah, and other characters that we haven't really experienced yet. I had another idea in a Marathon. There's a drug dealer that sells Stan all the cocaine, and I was going to make a part 3 to this story about him, that he's a drug dealer, he's a big kingpin, but then he has a near-death experience, and he kind of becomes the opposite, trying to take drugs out of the city somehow. I had other ideas for stuff. I don't know. I haven't explored it besides just writing down 2 sentences. This would be an idea for part 3. I haven't tried to outline the stories or anything. But yeah, this one's really interesting. Of course, people will compare Jackie Crow to like a Trump, because I even put it in there. He's a bit Trump. He's a bit Rizzo, the old former mayor of Philadelphia, Frank Rizzo. Hey Rizzo, was that the Jerky Boys? I don't know if that's what they did. I'm not gonna lie. I pretended to know the Jerky Boys as a kid because everyone else was like, Jerky Boys are awesome. But I didn't really listen to any of those CDs. Jerky Boys, Frank Rizzo. What does that come up? Anything? Hey, Rizzo. What am I thinking that? Yeah, Jerky Boys, Frank Rizzo. I think they did a bunch of prank calls like that. Frank Rizzo, auto mechanic. Yeah, I don't know these but I said, yeah, Jackie Crow in my story is he's a bit like Rizzo and he's a bit like Trump. He's this conservative, strong man who is going to clean up the streets because this is the war on drugs era. That's what the war on drugs was. If you're a drug addict, you are a criminal. You deserve to be in jail. And that's all. Story over. Even up to the 90s, the three strikes, you're out. You get 3 strikes, even if it's for like victimless crime. Well, you're in jail for life. Like I don't know how that worked really. But I just hear stories and I repeat them. 3 strikes, you're out. Who came up with that shit? 3 strikes, you're out. Law. It's almost the same as a trickle-down economics. Like, it sounds good. Yeah, trickle that shit down all over me. Trickle down, man. I want to be a part of that. 3 strikes, you're out. Law for dummies. Give me the simplest explanation of this shit. 3 strikes and your outlaws are U.S. state and federal sentencing rules requiring mandatory enhanced prison terms, often 25 to life, for defendants convicted of a 3rd serious or violent felony. Maybe they changed it. This was aimed at repeat offenders that generally require at least 2 prior qualifying convictions, effectively resulting in life sentences for the 3rd strike. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've heard mandatory sentencing guidelines because I've watched Law and Order. Dun, 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 dun. You know, that's where I get my education on the legal system through Erin Brockovich, Law and Order, and other movies like that. Or the Billy Bob Thornton Goliath. That was pretty good. I didn't mention that yet, but yeah, I talk about opioids all the time, and Billy Bob Thornton, he has that show on Amazon called Goliath, where he plays a lawyer, kind of like an alcoholic lawyer. One of the seasons was about opiates. One of them was kind of like Chinatown with the water rights in California, like pistachio farming. It was pretty good. It got pretty weird, like a Native American reservation casino. I was a pretty big fan of that show. The first season was really good. First season was the best. So that's my knowledge of the legal system. My cousin Vinny and shit like that. But yeah, not just that. I'm kind of making fun of myself, but even Shawshank Redemption, that kind of paints a sad picture of the criminal justice system. But even though that was from the 50s or 60s, whenever it was, Andy Dufresne. But what was I talking about? 3 strikes, you're outlaws. Yeah, I don't know if that was beneficial to anybody. I don't really know. Is it still a thing? Is 3 strikes, you're out still a thing? 3 strikes are all right. Is 3 strike law still in effect? Yes. With roughly 28 states and the federal government utilizing some form of this to impose mandatory enhanced sentences to repeat felons. Like, I can agree with that if it's a violent offense, but you always hear stories of people just possessing marijuana or something like that, and that becomes a felony, and now they're in jail for life. I never understood how anyone could agree with that. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm sure it's happened. Because that's a felony, right? Drug possession is a felony. That kind of changed over the last decade or so. You get caught with drugs now, if it's just like for personal use, all you get's like a $20 fine or whatever it is. I'm just guessing. I don't know what the money is, but it's not like it's going to be a felony. You could just pay a ticket and be on your way for possession. Not if you're trying to sell. If you have like 10 pounds of something, it's a little bit different. But if you're just smoking a joint, I don't think you're going to be arrested. But again, it depends where you are too. When in Rome, do as the fucking Romans. So yeah, it depends where you are. If you're in the middle of some Bible Belt, it might be a little bit more strict. They need more slave labor inside the prison system. Hey, this guy's smoking a joint. Put him in jail. Put him to work. Cool Hand Luke. Smashing fucking parking meters. Yeah. So is drug possession a felony? Maybe federally. Is drug possession a felony? Hey, we're getting into my legal mind. Drug possession can be a felony or a misdemeanor, depending heavily on the type of drug, the amount in possession. All right, yeah. Because then they can say intent to distribute. If you have like 10 pounds of weed, well, that's probably not your personal use. Although it could be, maybe you're just stocking up for the winter time. You like to fill the pantry with enough weed to get you through the winter 4 or 5 months. But yeah, whatever, man. If it's more like heroin or methamphetamine, maybe it's different. Yeah. And possession within 1,000 feet of a school. So yeah, it's about location. Prior conviction. Yeah. I'm sure it's all about money too. You get the right lawyer, then the lawyer can get you off for shit like that. But yeah, it could be a felony depending on the amount of drugs possessed. So, all right, maybe I'll stop on that legal note. I'll mention the book of Job and the Sisyphus story again. You can kind of see that in Manny's life. But unlike Joe, well, Joe and Manny are kind of the same. Joe's had kind of a bad string of luck in his life. In the marathon episode, Joe went through a bunch of shit. His mom killed a police officer, and now he has to take the blame for her. That kind of ruins his life. He can't get a job now, so he works at a porn store, cleaning up his boss's jism. So then that freaks him out. He finally burns the place down. And then he begins his triumphant return to marathon running. There's a bit of the Job story there, because even though he's working so hard and doing all this shit, there's still this unseen force trying to stop his dream. Kind of like what I feel like sometimes. And now we see Manny's story. We don't know how he ended up homeless. We just know he's been homeless for a while. He says, "I'm just an old man who's been on these streets for far too long." And we don't know his backstory yet. We're not going to know it until the very end. How did Manny become homeless? Why is he doing all these things, handing out bread to people and trying to help people while he's homeless himself? Why doesn't he return to society and become... Because people often would say that about homeless people. Get a job, or you're just taking up space, like Stutz. Stutz is telling those guys, you bunch of fucking deadbeats. And some people still, have that opinion of homeless people, but it could happen to anyone. just like Trading Places, which I mentioned, that movie Trading Places, which was a comedy, but there's some dark parts in that as well, if I remember correctly. There are some darker elements to that story. But the book of Job and the story of Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill, why did I make Manny pushing every scene? He's like pushing his shopping cart, like Sisyphus. He's pushing his shopping cart full of scrap metal because that's how he makes money. And for him, he's not paying rent. He's not paying car insurance. So making $10 in a day could feed him for like maybe 4 or 5 days, man. And his dog, he has to buy dog food for his dog. So that's how he survives. He's learned to survive. And now he's Sisyphus. Every day he's pushing his shopping cart, looking for scrap metal, other people's junk that he turns into food. I was talking about Marty Robbins yesterday because I listened to a podcast about the life going through Marty Robbins' famous album, Gunfighter Ballads, whatever it's called. And they mentioned his upbringing. He was so poor, his family had nothing. The teachers had to feed him in whatever town he lived in because they didn't even have food to feed the kids. And I guess that's like before the Great Depression even. So imagine that, you're poor as shit, and then the Great Depression hits, and you're like, fuck, man, we're already poor. We're already eating dirt. Now what the fuck? Yeah, it's pretty fucking crazy. So that's how Manny survives mentally and physically to feed himself. But he also keeps his mind balanced and his physical addiction balanced because he was obviously, which we've shown in this story so far, he was an alcoholic. Every time he passes the liquor store, he's like, well, I could go buy food, I could go feed the other homeless people bread in the morning, or I could buy this bottle of whiskey and feel good for the night, feel nice and warm inside. So he decides to do the prior. He's a very likable character. I really like his character. We'll find out why he's like this later as we get through a lot in the last 30 some pages. There's a lot more to digest about Manny. We don't know anything about him yet and what his plans are for this abandoned hotel, motel, whatever it is, hotel, motel. And we'll come back and dive into that when I get into part 2 of this. Again, it's kind of similar to what I said. If I was like a social worker and there were drug addicts and alcoholics and they don't have a motivation to stay clean, I'd be like, go donate blood, man. Get clean for a couple weeks and then go donate blood. Go donate your platelets or blood. As long as you're clean and it's healthy blood, of course, yeah. And then after you donate your blood, the Red Cross, like I do, will send you an email. They just sent me a text while I was doing this saying, your blood arrived at a hospital to help patients. And they actually update you like that and tell you where your blood's going. So for drug addicts and alcoholics and other people, that's your motivation. You could, if you stay clean, you could actually save people like that. And that would, some people might look at that as a motivation. Like maybe these people don't have families, they don't have kids, they don't have anyone that relies on them for anything. But if you can give a piece of yourself to help another person, maybe you'll stay off crack that week or whatever your drug of choice is, because that's more valuable to you. Feeling good, the feeling of accomplishment you get, the good feeling you get from doing something like that. And it takes 20 minutes to donate blood. Seriously, like to donate blood, just whole blood, it seriously takes 15, 20 minutes. they test you and then they just take your blood. I've been doing that platelet thing. That takes about 2.5 hours, but it's not that bad once you get used to it. I don't like needles either, man. They put 2 needles in me, but you just get used to it and zone out. That's what I tell the nurses. I'm just zoning out. Just do whatever you have to do. I'm just going to zone out for 2 hours. Like, that's kind of similar to that. Manny could either spend his scrap metal money on that bottle of whiskey, or he's going to feed his dog and keep his dog fed, and he's going to try to help Freddie and try to help other homeless people that he's probably come across. And that's his motivation for waking up, besides waking up to just get drunk, and like his former life probably was like. But we'll get more into his story, why he's like this exactly. A homeless preacher, homeless Jesus, the homeless Messiah. I had some weirder thoughts for this episode, but it went in this direction eventually. This was about the time, because this is episode 10. After this, there's only 2 more episodes to go. Rebels and Garrity, which are 2 of my favorites as well. But this one maybe marked that point where I was like, all right, I'm getting pretty good at this. And I just kind of let it flow out of me. Like, where am I going to take this story? How am I going to make Manny a likable character without sounding too preachy? Because he's a preacher. If I was a homeless preacher, what would I be saying to people? And I was trying to do that and have fun with it and put myself in the character, but not a lot of me, because, I'm not somebody who would actually preach to other people publicly. It's not something I view as a skill set. Preachers are a special breed. You have to be persuasive like a salesperson. Those old religion revivals, that's what I picture. Even in I spoke of that yesterday, or the other day, There Will Be Blood. That movie is about what's more powerful, the state or the church. And when the state becomes Daniel Plainview, who's in it just to get rich and crush his competition, he's going to crush the religious side too. He's the power hungry person. I think that's what I get from that movie. Like, the reason they put that other storyline, and at the end it's really Daniel Plainview who represents the cutthroat capitalism, the old oil barons that created this industrial revolution, and people had to fight against that and unionize for better working conditions and all that shit. And then there's Eli, who's the preacher who thinks he has the word of God coming from his mouth, and he represents that element of society. But when you have an economic system that's a political system as well, that's led by Daniel Plainview, that's his name, right? Daniel Plainview. When you have people like that, I think religion takes a back seat in the end, because, yeah, Daniel Plainview is a psychopath. He's one of the best villains of all time. There's parts of that movie where he's likable and you could connect to the guy. You're trying to make it in America yourself, and you're like, I get this guy, what he's trying to do. He walked all those miles with a broken leg, crawling through his mine when he was digging in the beginning. He got a broken leg, and then he's just crawling on the fucking ground because nothing's gonna fucking stop him. Like, I respect that element in somebody that dedicated to succeed, but he didn't have the right work-life balance. Daniel Plainview should have went to one of those retreats to just chill out a little, man. Once you make your first $1 billion, you could probably, take a weekend off, go chill out for a couple days by the beach, eat some fucking ice cream, and just relax. But yeah, Daniel Plainview is even more committed to that. The troll or Gollum collecting gold and treasure throughout your life. You just want to collect as many things as you can, claim as much wealth as you can before you die, so you can be buried with your wealth. Like, that's Daniel Plainview. He's almost even more insane than Gordon Gekko. Definitely is, yeah. Gordon Gekko was pretty fucking crazy, but I think he would meet his match with Daniel Plainview. But yeah, it's all relevant to this story. I'm talking about trickle down economics, and it's in this story, in the dream scene with the blood dripping down, because that's really what it is. Trickle down economics was like a fuck you. Yeah, trickle down. Like, it sounds like the worst political slogan of all time. Like, it sounds like people are peeing on other people. Yeah, it's almost like let them eat cake. It's like relevant to that same type of mentality. Let them eat cake or trickle down economics. It sounds the same to me. Like, it's a term that's not so subtle. Like, drink my pee, poor people. I am your master. You will drink my urine and be happy about it. So I thought it was a cool thing to put throughout this story. But I'm going to stop here. I think I rambled enough. I'll come back in a couple hours, finish this story. And you could tell it's so much of an easier reading experience. I'm sure if people listen to this, it's so much easier to get through a story that's straightforward, linear, with very few flashbacks, very few dream sequences. I had one, I think. Very few like weird hallucinations, and every script is different. Every reading experience will be different. This one's one of the easier ones because I just really enjoy the time period, the setting I created, and the characters. Manny, Joe, and Deborah. Like, you can make a whole series just based on their characters. A former prostitute, stripper. Now she's kind of in her older years. She doesn't know what the fuck to do. You have Manny, who we've kind of talked about already, and Joe, the former marathon runner. Like, yeah, you set up these characters to succeed, and they're likable people. Like, they are likable people. They're real people to some degree. They're real, but they're also kind of surreal because I kind of exaggerated everything. In Joe's case, yeah, you're never going to have a chain-smoking marathon runner. I don't think I'm ever going to live to see that. Although, in passing, I think I saw a video with a Chinese guy, a Chinese marathon runner. In passing, I happened to see this on Joe Rogan one day. There was actually a marathon runner smoking a cigarette. Yeah, all right, let me see. Google Chinese marathon smoker. And I'm not making this up. I wrote this story in... All right. I shared these stories in November of 2023. I believe around that time. This news report was from November 14th, 2022. A Chinese man, as they're trying to sell me running shoes here. Holy shit, dude. A Chinese man runs a 3-hour and 28-minute marathon while chain smoking. This was published November 14th, 2022. And I'm looking at a picture of this Chinese guy. He's running his marathon smoking a cigarette. It's exactly what I was writing. It's fucking crazy, man. The pictures of this is hilarious. Like, he looks like he's in good shape. His legs are like crazy muscular. And he did finish. He finished in over just about 3.5 hours. He's a 50-year-old runner. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this. Guangzhou, I don't know how to say it. And he was photographed smoking during a marathon. It's fucking crazy, man. He's also an ultra marathon runner who has run distances from 50 kilometers in 12 hours. I don't know what that means. But the picture is hilarious. Like, he doesn't look out of shape. He looks muscular and toned. He's 50 years old. He's running with other people around him. And he just has a cigarette dangling from his mouth. I didn't know this story existed until I heard it on Joe Rogan. All right, so people were commenting on this guy. This type of behavior should be banned from the race. One commented, I feel bad for runners around him. Yeah, I actually kind of agree with that, but that's pretty crazy that I didn't even read this story back then. There's another Reddit article. Chinese marathon runner disqualified for chain smoking through the race. So I guess he did it again and they disqualified him. It's pretty fucking crazy, man. Yeah, of course. Like, I wrote a completely surreal fictional story about this. Like, this is another marketing angle. Man, somebody needs to call me today and be like, dude, I'll direct it. I'll direct Marathon. Like, I'm speaking out to nobody right now, but I swear to God, it would be a hit movie. I have such a strong feeling for that script because of this. I just see it now and how funny this picture looks. This Chinese dude just smoking a cigarette as he's running a marathon around other runners. Supposedly he got disqualified or something. I don't know. I don't feel like doing too much research about this. But even if he didn't smoke, yeah, somebody on Reddit is saying to run a marathon in 3.5 hours at 52 years old, it's good either way, even if you're not a smoker. That's hard to do. This guy is made of smoke and steel. That's pretty funny. They should have a separate event then. All the smokers get like a bunch of smokers together and like they could have their smoking marathon. If you want a non-smoking marathon and a smoking marathon, make it fair for everybody. All right, we're going to do the smoking marathon. And there's like a crowd of 50 people start lighting up, stretching. Hey, Tom, smoking in Parliaments now? Yeah, I moved to the menthols. I think by mile 20, these menthols will really give me the power to continue. And then you'll see one guy like rolling up his own cigarettes. Nah, man, you got to go filter. You got to get rid of the filter. It goes way down deep. Keeps you. Yeah, I'm getting stupid now. I get it. But it is pretty funny. If you look up Chinese marathon runner smoker and look at the picture of the dude, and he looks like he's in the zone. He's definitely in the zone doing this. If this is a real story, it's not a Photoshop thing. Because I've been fooled by stuff in the past. But this seems to be a real story. That's pretty fucking hysterical. How many cigarettes did Uncle Chen smoke during the marathon? About 30 cigarettes. I guess his name is Uncle Chen. That's pretty funny, man. He's known as Uncle Chen. Ran a marathon while smoking 30 cigarettes and still completed it in 3.5 hours. Fucking hell, man. Somebody actually did this shit. Like, I would say we could just cast this guy in the role. But you'd have to do a pretty major rewrite to this story. Because in my story, the dude's only 20 years old. Sorry, Uncle Chen, but I'll give you some credit. But again, I never knew this story existed until maybe a year ago when it was mentioned on a Joe Rogan episode. It's pretty funny though. But yeah, all right, I'm gonna stop here. Come back in a couple hours and I'll finish part two, about 35 more pages, and it's pretty easy to digest. And hopefully, people will like this story as much as I do.